Affair. Manual for Preventing and Healing from an Affair. Written by Elsa Harbour. Table of Contents. Chapter 1. Tips to Prevent Affairs. Chapter 2. Flirting or an Affair. Chapter 3. My partner is having an affair. Chapter 4. How to start healing from extramarital relations. Chapter 5. Divorce. Chapter 1. Tips to Prevent Affairs. Practically all grown-ups, 90%, condemn marital infidelity, but as many as 25% engage in adulterous affairs. There are various kinds of infidelity, varying from full-blown sexual relationships to simply thinking about it. People take part in adulterous affairs for many different reasons, but the absence of sexual and emotional contentment are amongst the leading two. For a lot of couples, relationship contentment tends to go down slowly over the early years of someone's marriage. The stress of transitioning to parenthood also positions a problem on a couple, possibly leading the partners to become involved either in arguments or withdrawing mentally from one another. Reduces in relationship fulfillment and rises in divorce rates accumulate with time as a consequence of the interaction between a couple's risk elements and current life stresses. It's possible for partners to maintain their fulfillment despite these tensions, but it is a challenge nonetheless. One way to repair a hurt or broken relationship is through couples therapy, which, to be reliable, takes a minimum of 20 sessions. Before reaching that point, couples can take preemptive action to keep their bonds strong and healthy. Relationship education provides couples with knowledge and skills that can help them communicate more effectively and manage the ways they interact with one another. Based on a strong research-proof base, relationship education is reasonably short, with a curriculum amounting to a simple 12 to 18 hours. It's a little effort to invest in order to ensure that couples will remain as committed to each other over the difficulties that the years ahead can bring. Even for couples who aren't able to find a relationship education course, there are valuable lessons to be learned a lot from the research based on its principles. More to the point, according to the family psychologist who developed the fundamental technique, University of Denver's Howard Markman, relationship education can affair-proof a long-lasting relationship. In relationship education, couples learn both knowledge and abilities referring to the quality of marriage or long-lasting cohabitation. They learn that having a shared sense of commitment to the relationship is important to its continuing. Couples also learn the benefits of having reasonable expectations for their relationship. In other words, no relationship is flawless, and even great relationships, realistically, are very likely to mellow out in time. The lust of that first year or so changes into a quieter form of contentment as they learn how to appreciate one another as buddies. Communication, problem-solving, and coping are the three relationship abilities that couples work on through relationship education. Couples interested in these programs can find an educator who can offer training, but they're significantly becoming available in online and DVD variations. Popular authors in the field of long-lasting relationships, W. Kim Halford and Guy Bodenman, recap the results of 17 empirical research studies evaluating the effectiveness of 3 variations of relationship education in a June 2013 article published in the prominent Scientific Psychology Evaluation. Those relationship education variations include the Prevention and Relationship Education Program, Couple Commitment and Relationship Enhancement, Couple Relationship Education, and Couples Coping Enhancement Training. Halford and Bodenman used criteria for evidence-based interventions to check whether relationship education lives up to its claims. That meant that they only included research studies in which researchers performed at the very least 2 trials in which they arbitrarily assigned couples to manage versus treatment groups. Relationship education stresses the ways in which couples can build a sense of dedication and learn to engage in positive behaviors with each other that stress its pluses, such as having a good time, taking pleasure in sexuality and sensuality, and protecting friendship. In couples coping enhancement training, couples learn how to develop survival skills that can help them minimize the tension of day-to-day issues, inconveniences. Couple relationship education programs help partners identify and implement changes in themselves as a way to enhance their relationship in a process referred to as self-regulation. To put it simply, couples learn to monitor what they say and do around their partner, making them not as likely to lose control, for example, in mad outbursts. In their review of the research evidence, Halford and Bodenman found that programs lasting 10 to 20 weeks had more positive results on couple communication and contentment than those lasting less than 10 weeks. They also saw strengths and weak points of the studies carried out to date, concluding that relationship education works best on couples who are at high risk in the parts that the program targets, specifically communication, problem-solving, self-regulation, and coping with tension. The results were not widely favorable then, but the evidence in favor of relationship education outweighs its constraints. Talking about its affair-proofing possibilities, what can relationship education do to help decrease your chances of experiencing extramarital infidelity, or at the very least, conquering its impacts should it happen to you? Markman regards several aspects of relationship education as supplying the best insurance coverage against infidelity with the following 6 elements. Number 1. Find out more effective ways to deal with conflict. To the level that marital adultery is triggered by distress, relationship education teaches partners to manage dispute and negative feelings. Couples learn problem-solving abilities through didactic instruction along with behavior-oriented examples. Number 2. Be able to discuss adulterous affairs. One of the most hard aspects for couples, the betrayed and the betrayer, is to figure out how to communicate with one another about the affair. Once couples learn how to handle conflict, they can also be better prepared to deal with the problems associated with the infidelity, such as loss of trust, emotions of betrayal, and even transference of sexual illnesses. Because couples learn useful instead of damaging ways to solve conflicts in general, this specific conflict ends up being more manageable. Number 3. Enhance the bonds of commitment. Relationship education includes modules on reinforcing feelings of dedication to somebody's partner. In these kinds of modules, couples learn that checking out or being attracted to another individual is a regular part of everyday life. Having said that, people who are disappointed are much more likely to let their eyes and minds stray. Relationship education teaches couples the cognitive behavioral approach of thought stopping, meaning that when you begin to think about another person, say stop. Then, focus your attention to your current partner. Send an email or call your partner, expressing a loving message. Family researchers understand that couples in a long-term relationship have that relationship as their first top priority. By refocusing their attention on their partner, they're acting in their best interests. Number 4. Practice forgiveness. Extramarital contact is not the only behavior that may require forgiveness in a long-lasting relationship. However, when it occurs, there are ways to recuperate should the couple desire to work on their marriage. Relationship education teaches couples to exercise forgiveness in general. In general, by maximizing their emotional and sexual affection, the couple builds a natural buffer against the affair from taking place at all. Number 5. Recalibrate expectations. Every partner enters into a long-lasting relationship with a set of expectations about what will happen in the coming years and decades. These expectations include ideas about marital fidelity. Nobody enters into a dedicated, long-term relationship expecting adultery. However, if one does and the other doesn't, this suggests that they will have some adjusting to do. At the very least, this divergence needs to be discussed and the clashing expectations solved. Through the general dispute resolution methods that couples learn in relationship education, they can discuss their hopes for loyalty in a way that allows them to handle negative emotions safely and without fighting. Simply because we actually know that many people don't authorize of marital adultery, it is realistic to presume that they don't expect it will happen to them either. By building into relationship education expectations of cheating and what to do when it happens, couples can preventively address what could ultimately end their relationship ought to it occur. If you're searching for more info on relationship education, the National Healthy Marriage Resource Center consists of information about relationship education and associated subjects. This organization's agenda is to promote marriage as a supporting force in society. Not everyone would agree with their policy or agenda, but their website consists of useful information on subjects pertinent to today's families, which includes problems in long-lasting relationships for Army families. The National Council on Family Relations is an expert clinical organization promoting the interdisciplinary field of family science and consists of a wealth of resources ranging from family health to faith and families. Relationship education is on the agenda for both organizations, though the policy ramifications of healthy marriage seems more popular for the Marital Relationship Resource Center. Whether or not you're wed, relationship education can help you enhance the contentment you get out of whatever intimate collaboration you're in now. As we can see from Markman's thoughtful analysis of affair-proofing or recovering needs to it happen, by mastering both the knowledge and abilities, you can keep your relationship satisfying and resilient. Chapter 2. Flirting or an affair. You're an average-aged individual in a committed relationship. But one day, you all of a sudden discover you have got a crush on somebody. You're captivated by a colleague, a customer, or even, why now, an old friend. Life gets a little fizzy and a little fuzzy. You are checking electronic devices for cute text and searching for nuances in emails. You find flirty implications whether or not they're actually there. That is the silly part. Like the flu, the best thing to do is sit tight and hope it passes quickly before too many people notification and before any person else is contaminated. What you are, obviously, is fascinated. The word infatuated is stemmed from the Latin fatus, meaning absurd, or, as some linguists argue, too heavy in the thigh area for an assignation, a term, by the way, closely related to the Greek word for cellulite, indicating going heavy on the gravy. You didn't think people got crushes at this age. All the best. I have a 93-year-old good friend who was worried that her 88-year-old spouse is having a psychological affair with a more youthful woman in their congregation. The femme fatale in question is 85, making the fatale part of the expression a little more real than normal. Yet my friend is as indignant and envious as a teenager. "That one is wooing him with cooked meats," she snarls. "She's part of the brisket brigade. I don't care, I'm going to outlast her, and I still have better legs." To be sincere, I have a hard time with the term psychological affair. Is it the exact same thing as a passing fancy? A minute of foolishness? A ridiculous crush? Then why dignify it with a term that sounds both romantic and pathological? At the very least, the word crush sounds just about as outrageous as it is, especially when applied to people who have credit limit, laugh lines, and party or panty lines. In contrast to crush, psychological affair sounds solemn and self-important. It does not want low-cost hotels with day rates. It wants expensive lunches and really love songs. It's got its head in a nook instead of some nookie. However, what precisely is it? Let's look at some popular meanings of the emotional affair, shall we? How about this one? It's an emotional affair if you share stuff with a person apart from your partner. Honey, if you do not have relationships or just somebody else random to speak with about your stuff apart from your partner, you need to get out more, and quickly. You probably also need a life with more fascinating stuff. Also, and this is the English professor in me speaking, so please put down your pens and concentrate, stop using the word share. Sharing is good for Caesar salads, desserts, and condominiums in resort areas, but that's about it. Every little thing else you should either tell, explain, or bellow, specifically in an intimate relationship. Besides, how can you really expect your mate to be as interested in your friends from high school as, say, your actual good friends from high school? That kind of pretend fascination lasts about 3 months tops, and after this, any sensible mate says something like, "Which one is Lindsay? The one you like or the one you don't like?" when you go over the intricacies of the approaching reunion, but lets it go at that. How about this meaning of a psychological affair? When you are confronted about the relationship, you say, "We're just friends." What in the world, then, are you supposed to say when you are just friends? "No, sweetheart, I simply despise that specific person. I accompany people I cannot stand in order to ensure that I am going to want to come home to you." Look, all of us really need reassurance. To really love people you do not trust is something to wish on your nemesis. And I am not trying to reduce the real agony of seeing the person you love can be remotely attracted to somebody else. This is the reason that gun laws are a great idea. But if it remains a matter of remotely attracted, with the emphasis on range, both physical and emotional, then perhaps the best thing to do with a crush is to laugh it back into perspective. Chapter 3. My partner is having an affair. Here is a story from a woman. I am a wife whose spouse isn't devoted. He began to sleep outside, and when I asked, he told me he's sleeping in the rest home in the army, as he is an army guy. This has upset me so much that I am depressed. We began quarreling to the extent that since 2003, we have had no sexual relationship. I just recently came to understand that he has another woman. He has been accused by a guy of having an affair with his wife, a matter reported in the local newspaper and even taken to his employer. I'm thinking of divorce, but we have 3 children. What can I do to forget him totally? It would be difficult and risky to ignore the father of your children. They need some connection to him, even if you don't. But it is important to examine your situation reasonably. It sounds as if you already have a divorce in all but name. A partner who is no longer around, cares little about your feelings, and is included with other women. It is not clear whether he sees his kids, but there's no advantage to being married for the kids' sake, if your partner has decamped for other spots. Divorce, at the very least, will free you to restructure life around your needs and those of your children. Eventually, you may want to look for a new relationship. What you need now is a good divorce legal representative to prepare a contract that protects you and your children and gets you all the spousal support and kid support you are entitled to. The fact that your husband deserted the marital bed and is freely involved with another person will give you a particular bargaining advantage that should be went after. Your husband should certainly have visitation privileges with his children, and I hope he exercises them freely. You have to understand that depression is a natural response to being abandoned and then publicly embarrassed. As you reorganize your life, the gut feeling that you are actively doing something for yourself and your children will help dissolve the depression. Another story. I have been included with a man for nearly 3 years. Our relationship began while he was married to a woman he says he was never in love with. They have been separated since he first told me of his emotions for me, and he is an active stepfather to her children, now 11 and 12. Still, he is still not separated. She lives with her 2 children in one of his 2 houses. We have spoken about a wonderful future, but to me, having a future means moving forward. However, he's still not separated. I want to tell him let's take a break till he gets a divorce. He says the primary trouble is monetary, because even with a pretty good job, he brings a lot of financial debt. Still, I want to be wed. Do I keep waiting, or tell him we really need to break till he deals with the circumstance? Plainly, your method of pushing isn't working. It's just an expression of your anxiety, and it's not getting you what you really want. If you stop asking for a while and find some other outlet for your anxiety, like working out or deep breathing, he's very likely to bring up the topic, if for no other reason than that he may fear your silence means you have made other strategies. Sometimes it's hard to see a path into the future when you have so many strings attaching you to the past. When he gets around to the subject, tell him kindly that it's still a goal you hope he shares, and then ask to take a seat together and talk about it constructively. Abandon your minimal either-or vision and opt instead to plan out a course. Together, prepare a plan for the next 5 years and rough timetable of steps that incorporate both your needs. It's critical that you get his input. That will give you the security you yearn for, and he will have a strategy he himself designed for moving on. Another story is the following. I am a 40-year-old married woman whose oldest kid is leaving for college. My spouse had an affair 5 years ago. I have worked things out with my spouse, but still feel hurt and betrayed when I see or hear something that reminds me of his affair. He does not like to discuss it anymore since he is attempting to carry on. It doesn't sound just as if you've worked things out with your partner. It sounds as though he has worked out a very favorable deal with you, in which he doesn't need to discuss it anymore in the name of moving on, while you get stuck doing all of the psychological work of forgiving and forgetting, which is a very difficult task. An affair is a huge deal. Some points to consider. An affair is basically a betrayal of trust. Your spouse breached the guidelines you thought you both were living by. It's not his place to determine when he has restored your sense of trust. Only you can know that. Obviously, there is more work to be done there. What's more, you and your husband have to renegotiate your relationship from the ground up. Get the help of a good family therapist, someone that works for the relationship, not just for one of you. Here is another story from an individual. After 20 years, my wife and I split up 4 years ago. 6 months after leaving, I started a sexual relationship. My marriage partner found out and pled me to come back. I did it mostly for our 3 kids, I think, and went on to lie about the sex until it came out in therapy. She forgave me, and we remarried 7 months ago. Then she began having an affair. She's thrown me out and speeded up divorce proceedings. I've asked forgiveness and let her know I really love her. I have incredible guilt for overlooking her. I've gotten incredibly clingy, have followed her, even split into her email and read the sex talks. She says it's over and can't be fixed. Every day I punish myself and ask her to take me back. Every day she dislikes me more. What an uncomfortable war of retribution you two are stuck in. But your clinging and spying are ensured not to prove your trustworthiness or desirability as a partner. The first thing that must be done if there's any hope of salvaging the relationship. Get off your knees and onto your feet. Do not wallow in your guilt. Let it be the stimulus for learning better ways of acting and getting the abilities for bridging the emotional gorge that has long existed between you and your wife. Demonstrate, do not announce, your respect for her and your 20 years together. Another story from a married person. I have been married for almost 20 years to a well-educated lawyer and college professor. I was a registered nurse, but haven't worked in 15 years. I also have MS, but so far it hasn't been a problem. My husband had his first affair in the early 90s. It lasted practically 5 years till the woman, a colleague, moved. We tried to work on the marriage and were doing fairly well, till I found a love letter to a woman he was planning to meet in Germany. He takes a trip constantly. Unbeknownst to me, our child, 15, also found this letter and went into an emotional tailspin. We are in counseling, but I really wonder continuously what to do. He says he likes me and wants to work on the marriage, says there's something wrong with him, and does not know why he did it. At 52, I'm scared to set out on my own, and I do have a really comfortable lifestyle. Yet I worry about the influence on my son, who is in treatment for abusing pot at a private school. I am losing respect for myself. What should I do? It's possible to salvage a marital relationship after adultery, but it is not easy. There's absolutely nothing worth fixing unless your spouse shows empathy for the pain he triggered you and your son, and takes responsibility for the choices he made, despite any problems in the marriage. The bedrock of relationship is trust. The shattering of trust through betrayal makes adultery a true trauma. The betrayal isn't sex with another woman. It's his secretly becoming emotionally closer to an outsider than to you, while you are operating on a very different set of presumptions about your relationship. Healing involves a long, slow rebuilding of trust, by your spouse stopping all contact with the affair partners, by sharing his location, by wanting to answer all of your questions about past and present contacts with the affair partners. Just as important, you need to together develop the relationship you both want, one you can both eagerly anticipate, and make time for it. No living style, no matter how nice, is an alternative to close connection with another person. Remaining in a marriage for fear of being on one's own does not encourage closeness. Sharing your deepest feelings and dreams for the future with one another does, and is the best prevention to an affair. By the way, your MS may not be disabling you, but it could be exceptionally affecting your relationship. That you have a condition that's usually progressive could be keeping your husband emotionally distant from you. The only way to know is by talking about it in a mild and open way. On this, you have to take the lead, because his reticence may be his, misdirected, way of trying to protect both of you. One woman asked the following question. I have been married 25 years. My spouse has been talking to a woman and says they're just friends. He knows how awkward it makes me feel. This is the third time I have found her number on his phone, and he says there's nothing going on. He says he still loves me and nobody else. Am I stupid or what for staying? My heart can't take it anymore, and this is my last time, or should I just quit now? You aren't dumb for remaining in a marital relationship that has apparently had its share of good years, but it would be smart to consider some questions now. Has your spouse ever had a discussion with his good friend in your presence? Has he ever introduced her to you or attempted to bring you into the friendship? Is this friend married? Not that being married is any warranty of fidelity after all, but if she is single and living alone, it could raise your level of suspicion to, perhaps, orange alert. If they're just good friends, then there is no reason for him to be keeping his conversations with her secret from you or to keep the friendship to himself. Most partners like to share good things, like friendships, or at the very least information about them. That's what makes for a great relationship. You each enrich the other by sharing accounts of individual experiences. A few other questions you may ask yourself. Just what triggered you to go trying to find a number? Were there other aspects of his behavior that aroused your suspicion that something was happening? Are there portions of your partner's time that are unaccounted for? And save yourself the stress of entering a battle royale with your spouse over his friend. Instead, find a peaceful time to ask him how he wants to make your relationship better so that he does not hesitate to share his deepest thoughts with you and not with somebody on the outside. One woman has the following issue. My husband and I have been together a little over 5 years, married for 1 year. I just recently found out, from other people, that he has slept around. I challenged him and he said just once. Though, I have found prophylactics in his coat and we have not used prophylactics in over 3 years. He told me it was for a bachelorette party at the bar he hangs out at. I know when he's lying, and he was. I have also found him masturbating to porn, and he has profiles active on websites for finding mates, even on sites for married people desiring affairs. When I face him, he enters into a rage and says it's for home entertainment only. I have found letters he has sent to some of these women, and they sound like he is having an affair. I have never been an envious person, but recently I am having a hard time holding my composure. A marriage, like any other deal, loses a lot of its charm when only one partner plays by the rules. Still, it is pretty clear that confrontation is not going to get you the love you want or the mindset change your spouse needs. There's nothing left to gain from conflict. He's already confessed to unfaithfulness, and you have got hard evidence that he is messing around on the internet. It's time to talk to your partner. Find a moment when you can put aside frustration and anger at past betrayals and talk calmly and caringly. Remind him what you two first saw in one another and what you both intended to build together in a marital relationship. And then ask him what in his own life or your present relationship he wants to do better. Consider several possibilities. Maybe he's dead-ended in his job and looking to be jolted out of sadness. Maybe your husband doesn't know how to specify his sexual needs and asks you for what he wants. Maybe he's ashamed about what he likes and for some reason thinks it's not something he has to do with his wife. Maybe he does not know what dedication is about. It doesn't mean he will not get sexually aroused by strangers in bars ever again. It means he just can't act upon it. Maybe there were no real guys around in his life when he was maturing, and now that he's on the inside, he really doesn't know how marriage works. It could be that he thinks sleeping around is manly and something guys just do. Or, perhaps, he grew up in a loveless home and got the mistaken idea that marriage is the end of all the fun. You need to ask him what his ideas about married life are. This is the kind of info all couples really need to exchange frequently. That said, I have a question for you. Why is your spouse hanging out at a bar? It's not that good for his liver or his marriage. It is a mishap waiting to happen. What's he trying to find there? If it's male friendship, certainly there are more positive ways of finding it. Maybe you should make a point of being included in the outside interacting socially. After all, everybody needs some. How you and your spouse hang out independently and together is at the heart of marriage. It is a matter of calm conversation and joint settlement. You each have to be sincere about your emotions and thoughtful of the other. It's realistic to include solo activities, but also to expect that those activities not put either one of you in situations that could jeopardize your relationship. If you're not happy about him interacting socially at a bar, it's your responsibility to tell him so. You may tell him that it not only puts him in the direct line of fire with other women, it makes you worry and unloved. It could be that your spouse truly has no clue how much he's hurting your feelings. If he doesn't react with concern for your feelings, then there is no relationship to save. Better to find that out sooner rather than later, simply because the hurt will only grow bigger when there are children you have to secure, and that's a time when your choices could be fewer. Here is an important question and answer from a person who is trying to find the right man for her. I have been dating someone for a year who never wanted to meet my family. He would always say, "We can have a relationship, but you stay on your side of the fence and I'm going to stay on mine." Approximately a month ago, I went on a business trip with an old friend who was long thinking about me. We ended up being intimate, but he has been dealing with another person for the past 12 years and has not comprised his mind to leave her. Since then, my boyfriend has become very caring, promising to meet my folks and even talked marriage. I love him, feel guilty for cheating, and feel that we have extremely different views of life. The other man and I have extremely similar views of life and business, but he appears secure to relationship. Is it better to be in a relationship with a man you can't connect to well, but you know loves you and is now very committed, or with a person you work well with, but still has not made up his mind to commit to you? Neither circumstance sounds amazing. You are putting way too much emphasis on how a guy feels about you. Admittedly, a sine qua non of a relationship. You are not valuing your own self enough to make yourself a full partner to a relationship. That failure to confirm yourself is going to weaken any choice you ever make. If you appreciated yourself more, you would have the ability to exercise your own judgment and see that you've limited your possibilities to two guys with serious flaws for a relationship. It's almost unrealistic to build a joint future, the purpose of marriage, with someone who has different views of life than you do, unless you talk those views out completely and can make them mesh in very particular ways. As for number 2, why would you ask any man to commit to you after one business trip? That's a bit much for any kind of guy, and especially one as certifiably commitment-phobic as the one you've set your sights on. After all, he has been unable to make a commitment for at least 12 years. There are a lot of other guys out there, and if you appreciated yourself enough, you would opt for no less than a person who can offer compatible worldview and dedication in one wholesome package. Another individual said this: "I'm very much in love with my partner of 14 years. Unfortunately, he has cheated at least 5 times in our marriage, and that has triggered our relationship to strain. I know he loves me, and I really love him very much, but he cannot seem devoted. He has promised me this last time he cheated that he isn't going to do it again and that he's sick of that. Is it possible he could be saying the truth? Can men truly be loyal?" Yes, they can, and most of them are. But believing that they cannot might be encouraging you to let your spouse off the hook way too quickly, with easy pledges rather than actions. Promises never ever work. They enable him to sweep his misdeeds under the carpet while you are left to deal alone with the damage. For one, it doesn't sound just as if you have made it clear to him how much his cheating hurts you. And you are not giving him the chance to make amends for the pain he has caused and to restore your trust in him. Has he, for example, that he has severed all contact with his affair partners? Does he comprehend the pain he has caused, and does he care enough about you to answer the many questions you have about his secrets and lies? Further, the two of you need to upgrade your marriage so that it works for both of you. This is something each couple needs to do occasionally, as needs progress in time. You do it by sitting down together and talking truthfully, freely and respectfully about your needs and creating a relationship that accommodates both your needs and his. What is it that you would like from each other? Good marital relationships don't just happen. You need to construct them from the ground up. One woman said this: "I'm a victim of my husband's midlife crisis. After 28 years of marriage and 4 adult children. I'm 44 and was surprised to find my husband is having an affair with an employee 25 years his junior. I cannot trust him though he's caring and says he does not want to lose me. I want to leave him but don't have the nerve to go, as I have no good friends. I have been seeing a psychiatrist for the past year, but am still so angry that I can't accept what he has done to me. I am so confused that it's destroying me inside. I do really need my space, but do not know how to tackle getting it." Shock, anger, confusion. These are highly proper reactions to learning that the person you love has betrayed you. If a man or woman reaches midlife dissatisfied with his life, then he owes it to his partner to go over ways of starting change that work for both partners, not just for one of you. I presume he has stopped the affair, and if there's any hope of saving your marriage, he must furnish proof that he has, whether it is showing you records of his mobile phone calls or changing jobs. It's part of taking sadness to restore your sense of trust in him, and the burden is on him to prove to you that he is trustworthy. It takes a very long time to build rely on the first place, and a lot more effort and time to rebuild it after it has been shattered by deliberate actions. Does your spouse have any sense of the trauma he has inflicted? After all, he was the someone who broke the guidelines you thought you were both living by. If he does not have a consciousness of the real pain he's triggered you, then it is nearly impossible to repair the damage, and you might be better off creating a new life of your own. If you choose to stay, you and your spouse should collectively build a new relationship from the ground up, freely consenting to the rules you both establish. By no means are you the cause of your partner's affair, but having little life of your own imbalances the relationship in a way that can make an outsider appear appealing. It renders you even more dependent on your partner for companionship than he's on you. In time, people in such a position often grow to feel bitter the burden of responsibility. Whether you stay or go, you really need a life of your own. You really need relationships and activities that are rewarding to you. Everyone does. Chapter 4: How to Start Healing from Extramarital Relations. After finding extramarital sex in your relationship, you could be not sure if you should stay or go. Discovering cheating in your relationship can feel like a bomb just went off. It's upsetting and disorienting. If you want to heal your relationship, you can ask yourself these 3 questions to get clarity. Would you want to be committed to your partner if you trusted them again? Have you released your anger and animosity about your partner's betrayal, and are you able to move forward? Can you forgive your partner for their actions? If you decide you would like to stay in the relationship, the Gottman method uses a 3-step process to help couples heal from an affair. Stage 1. Atone. The cheater must show regret. Rebuilding a relationship after cheating is not possible without this. The individual who was unfaithful attempts to comprehend their partner's emotions and to accept responsibility without getting defensive. They need to step up and say, "I broke my dedication to this marriage. I take complete responsibility for my actions. These types of comments are not useful. If you didn't do blank, I would not have cheated. Couples will then begin working to get insight into what went wrong. Both members must become more aware of the reasons that resulted in the affair, without blame. The individual who was unfaithful must end the affair and all contact if they want to progress. There must be an intentional commitment to the relationship. Stage 2. Attune. Attunement happens when a couple starts to forgive and is ready to rebuild their relationship without blaming. During this phase, you will come up with a plan to deal with dispute. The unfaithful partner must also make the relationship a top priority. The couple will go public as a unified front. Stage 3. Attach. The last stage involves the couple reconnecting physically. They must learn how to trust one another. That can be particularly hard for the victim partner. Couples will come up with a strategy to reignite emotional and physical intimacy. Affair recovery is complicated, but absolutely possible with the help of a certified therapist. As you move through these stages, you might experience setbacks. The experience isn't always direct. Allow yourself to be sincere about your experience and where you are at while doing so. With some patience and exertion, your relationship can recover and will become strong again. Chapter 5. Divorce. The dissolution of a marital relationship is usually a disturbing event, at the very least significant by disappointment and the loss of dreams and expectations. Additionally, there are legal, financial, adult, emotional, and practical difficulties that need time, energy, and changes in duties. It can take people years to restore equilibrium. Nonetheless, divorce serves an essential function lawfully and mentally. Why people get divorced. Among the most significant events of the 20th century was a significant change in the roles women could handle in private and public life, allowing women more chances for fulfillment and joy. With a shift in roles inside and outside the house came a needed, and usually contentious, shift in the division of responsibilities inside the home, one of many aspects fueling an extremely advertised rise in divorce rates and liberalization of divorce laws. Infidelity has long been a leading reason for divorce, together with monetary upheavals. But one repercussion of liberalized attitudes to divorce is a major addition to that list: the search for psychological nearness. Individuals today have high expectations for relationship contentment. What are very common reasons for divorce? Research suggests that common reasons for divorce include absence of intimacy, absence of commitment, extramarital sex, and standard incompatibility. Other widespread causes are consistent conflict, monetary distinctions, dependency, and abuse. Lots of people articulate the root of their divorce as a betrayal of expectations, hopes, and dreams for the marriage. How do I decide to divorce? A therapist can help you reach a decision by exploring the battles you're dealing with, identifying whether or not those problems can be fixed, creating a reasonable image of what life would look like later, and how your children could be impacted and secured. In the process of responding to these questions, a moment of clarity usually emerges. How do I tell my spouse that I really want a separation or divorce? This can be one of the most tough and painful conversations, so it deserves taking time to prepare. Be kind, direct, and firm. Stay away from blaming, yelling, or being defensive. Lay out a plan for where you or your partner could live short term. Acknowledge your partner's emotions and allow them to process the change before sharing it with others. What is the divorce rate? The divorce rate is remarkably hard to gauge, but the famous 50% figure could be an overestimate. Some estimates position the divorce rate around 42 to 45%. Group and socioeconomic elements connected to a lower possibility of divorce include a college level, wedding at an older age, and not having actually divorced previously. How to heal from divorce. Divorce is as much a psychological experience as it is a legal one, and it takes guts to begin the process of splitting. One or both partners may experience waves of insecurity. Both need a variety of abilities to work out the inescapable conflicts and dissatisfactions that arise. During divorce, two people must come to terms with the relationship failure, set up mentally and generally economically independent lives, and put the relationship firmly in the past. It is essential to comprehend and accept the role each partner played in the relationship breakdown. It is usually valuable for separating partners to establish rules of engagement to limit contact with each other. The outside perspective of a professional counselor can be specifically advantageous. Ultimately, the emotional turbulence subsides and it becomes possible, and necessary, to incorporate a highly nuanced story of the relationship, its failure, the divorce, and the resulting psychological development into a person's identity. Most exes find it valuable to adopt some kind of ritual, such as an exchange of letters or gifts, to mark the end, acknowledging a past together and approaching a future apart. What are the hardest parts of getting divorced? A divorce can lead to deep or surprising losses. For parents, spending less time with children usually hits hardest, in addition to the collaboration of sharing in a child's successes and disappointments. People may feel that they have lost their buddy, family traditions, financial security, and vision for the future. Acknowledging these losses is the initial step to healing. Why can't I let go of my anger towards my ex? It can be extremely hard to release the anger that can accompany rejection and divorce. Most people may resist progressing because they're not prepared to detach from their suffering. Letting go of anger means releasing the hope that the other person will ever feel regret, see their perspective, or return to them. What actions can help me recuperate from divorce? The initial step is to accept that the divorce is going on, even if it was not your choice. Try to overcome your emotions through journaling, good friends, divorce support groups, or therapy before starting legal proceedings. If possible, choose a procedure that keeps you out of court. Finally, work toward forgiveness, both for your ex and yourself. How divorce affects children. Divorce usually breaks up a household and its regimens. Children really need assurance that they are still loved by both parents and that they won't be abandoned. They also really need to be spared any conversations in which one parent denigrates the other for any reason. It's generally not the real divorce that harms kids, but seeing their parents fight and in distress. Because each kid reacts in a different way to divorce, parental response is best customized to the needs of each kid. Often, kids are frightened, confused, mad, or disappointed in one or both parents. The stress of the split and readjustment to change, especially if a home move is involved, can heighten anxiety, boost irritability, develop conduct problems, beget social withdrawal or difficulty sleeping. There might be a drop in class attentiveness, and grades might suffer. Many of the impacts of divorce on children are short-lived and fixed within a year or two. However, others could be longer-lasting and play out in later attitudes toward romantic relationship. How does divorce impact children? Research shows that kids are not necessarily affected by living with a single parent. Family conflict, however, can cause struggles with mental health, self-confidence, school, and future relationships. The more parents work to minimize conflict, the better off children will be. How do I tell my kids that we're getting separated? Tell your kid not long after the decision has been made, and have a conversation together as a family. Clarify the facts that matter to them: where they will live, who will pick them up from school, so they know what to expect. Continue to emphasize your love for them and the fact that will never change. How do I help my children get used to the divorce? Talk with your kid routinely about the feelings they're experiencing and accept and validate those emotions. Prepare them for upcoming changes, like a parent or caretaker vacating. Keep a schedule, perhaps even with a calendar on a wall, so they know what to expect and when they will see each parent. How do I successfully co-parent after a divorce? Successful co-parenting involves shielding kids from parental dispute, showing respect for the other parent in front of your child, and supporting their relationship. Maintain open communication with the other parent when possible, or establish an agreed-upon co-parenting schedule. Aim to maintain the kids' regimens, activities, relationships, and community. A surprising way to cope with your divorce. My daughter yelled to her good friend from 6 feet away, "Let's play that game where we are spies attempting to end racial injustice." My 13-year-old daughter and her good friend were jumping in and out of the pool, 6 feet apart, and chatting about the guidelines of their game. As they usually do, they spent a pretty good 30 minutes planning their characters' outfits. I want to be wearing a shawl, but not a shawl that goes totally across your chest, but one that goes 3/4 of the way and has big buttons, explained my daughter. They argued over who would get to say which line when they busted into the Oval Office to declare they need to recognize that released slaves were not given what was promised, while always reminding each other of their pretend names. Watching them took my breath away. There they were, teetering between engaging in youth imaginary play and dealing with complex, developed concerns. Maybe rather than teetering, they were using the power of their creativity to look at and process a difficult reality. Teens are on the precipice of a considerable growth-related shift where they start to see the complicated world from other people's viewpoints. Still, they also still hang on, unabashedly, to their youth imaginations. Teens are in the perfect space to bring creativity to challenges. It is us grown-ups who get stuck in things that disconnect us from our creativity. Do you remember a time when you used your creativity to picture something beyond your wildest dreams? How old were you? What would it seem like if, right before you try a metaphorical cannonball into a pool, you asked yourself, "What would I do differently if I had no boundaries and could use my creativity to produce what I most desire?" Let's learn much from the brave, creative, bold people in our lives how to open our eyes to what is possible when we allow ourselves to let go and dream. Where does your creativity want to take you with your divorce? What life can you imagine for yourself? Write it down and read it every day for 2 weeks. You will begin to notice some shifts in your mood, perspective, and decision-making. This has been Affair, Manual for Preventing and Healing from an Affair, written by Elsa Harbour. Affair, Reasons and Preventative Measures for Extramarital Relationships, written by Elsa Harbour. Table of Contents. Chapter 1. Sexual Self-Confidence. Chapter 2. How to recover from rejection and breakups. Chapter 3. Steps to recovering from an adulterous affair. Chapter 4. After an affair. Chapter 5. What if you love them both? Chapter 6. The actual reason why extramarital affairs are hard to stop. Chapter 7. Should the kids know you had an affair? Chapter 8. Will your marital relationship endure the affair? Chapter 1. Sexual self-confidence. Sexual self-confidence affects nearly each sexual choice you make, from who you engage with and when to whether you contain yourself and how you do it. Yet, very little is known about sexual self-esteem and who has more or less of it. This is specifically essential because sexual self-confidence and sexual fulfillment are closely related. Some studies suggest that lower sexual self-esteem negatively affects sexual fulfillment. Another research study, by Hale and Strasberg, reported that results of an experiment to check the results of low sexual self-confidence and revealed that male individuals' sexual arousal was substantially and adversely impacted by poor sexual self-confidence. What is sexual self-esteem? Sexual self-esteem is feeling capable of being involved in sexual practices with effective procedures and results. Sexual self-confidence tends to vary with age and one's partner's sexual abilities or interest, and it may differ for males and females and across cultures. Research studies also suggest that sexual self-confidence is negatively affected by a range of life experiences, which includes childhood sexual abuse, sexual victimization, handicaps, and health issues. Another research study found that sexual self-confidence is favorably related to general self-esteem. More broadly, many cultures push us to limit our ideas about sexuality and to develop low self-confidence. Others connect sexual self-confidence to ideal visions of beauty and beauty. Because of that, there's always the desire to chase after these ideal visions. When we do not prosper, we may experience it as a reflection of our lack of desirability and develop low self-respect. Who has the greatest levels of sexual self-confidence? Many think that married people have the greatest level of sexual self-worth. After all, a single person they are with already knows them well, and they likely don't feel threatened by that individual. Competition is low, and ideal visions of attractiveness are fading over time. Moreover, many societies sanction and admire marital relationships, and it only makes sense that married people would feel better about themselves. Nonetheless, my new findings suggest that this is not the case when it comes to sexual self-esteem. Using the ninth wave of the PAIRFAM, Panel Analysis of Intimate Relationships and Family Dynamics, dataset, and examining the reactions of 3,207 respondents in total, discoveries showed that married people have lower levels of sexual self-esteem than nearly all groups measured. 7 relationship status groups were included in this study. Wed people, who make up the largest group of the sample, 57.4%, never married single, 14%, never married individuals who have a partner but they live apart, 4.3%, never married people who cohabit with their partner, 13.1%, divorced or separated single, 5.3%, divorced or separated individuals who have a partner but they live apart, 2.7%, and divorced or separated who currently cohabit with their partner, 3.3%. The results are amazing. In regards to sexual self-confidence, men who were divorced or separated and living apart from a partner and never married cohabiting guys were comparable to married men, while only never married cohabiting women showed lower scores than married women. The detailed and wealthy data of the PairFam survey show that even singles who have never ever been wed tend to report higher levels of sexual self-esteem. In this research study, sexual self-esteem was a built variable composed of the following 2 items: I am an excellent sex partner, and, in general, I can fulfill the sexual needs and desires of my partner well. This product is a new development made by the PairFam study group. Why married people have lower levels of sexual self-confidence. We can only speculate about why married people showed lower levels of sexual self-esteem than most groups. One possibility is that sexual self-confidence levels work in reverse. People with lower sexual self-esteem may be more likely to wed. They might be inspired in part by wishing to feel safer and to cover for their lower sexual self-confidence. In any case, these findings suggest another reason that songs and not yet married couples should not feel inferior, although society typically makes them feel that way. Chapter 2: How to Recover from Rejection and Breakups. Just because our nerve system is wired to need others, rejection hurts. Feeling lonely and missing connection share the evolutionary purpose of survival and recreation. Ideally, solitude should motivate you to connect to others and maintain your relationships. Rejection in an intimate relationship especially hurts. It's specifically tough in the romantic stage of a relationship when we have unmet wish for the future. A UCLA research study validates that sensitivity to psychological real pain resides in the same area of the brain as physical pain. They can hurt equally. Our response to pain is affected by genes. If we have increased sensitivity to physical pain, we're more vulnerable to feelings of rejection. Furthermore, love stimulates such strong feel-good neurochemicals that rejection can feel like withdrawal from a drug, says anthropologist Helen Fisher. It can compel us to engage in obsessive thinking and compulsive conduct. This showed true even for tsetse flies in lab experiments. See Healthy Love versus Dependency. Most people begin to feel better 11 weeks following rejection and report a sense of personal development. Similarly, after divorce, partners start to feel better after months, not years. Even so, up to 15% of people suffer longer than 3 months. Rejection can feed sadness, particularly if we're already even slightly depressed or have suffered depression and other losses in the past. Factors affecting resiliency. Other elements that impact how we feel and the consequences of a breakup are the period of the relationship, our attachment style, the degree of intimacy and commitment, whether problems were acknowledged and discussed, foreseeability of the separation, cultural and family displeasure, other present or past losses, self-respect. If we have an anxious attachment style, we're vulnerable to obsess and have negative feelings, and attempt to restore the relationship. If we have a safe and secure, healthy attachment style, uncommon for codependents, we are more resistant and able to self-soothe. If the relationship lacked true intimacy, pseudo-intimacy may have substituted for a real binding connection. In some relationships, intimacy is rare, just because one or both partners is mentally not available. An example would be the following. Partners of narcissists often feel irrelevant or unloved, yet strive to win love and approval to confirm that they are. Lack of intimacy can be an indication that the relationship is bothered. Read 20 Signs of Relationship Problems. The effect of shame and low self-esteem. Rejection can devastate us if our self-regard is low. Our self-confidence affects how personally we analyze our partner's behavior and how reliant we're upon the relationship for our sense of self and self-confidence. If our self-esteem is shaky, we are more prone to being reactive to signs of disfavor by our partner and tend to take their words and actions as a discuss ourselves and our value. Many codependents give up personal interest, aspirations, and good friends once they are romantically included. They adjust to their spouse and their life revolves around the relationship. Losing it can make their world crumble if they are left without pastimes, objectives, and a support system. Typically, the lack of self-definition and autonomy in advance prompted them to look for someone to fill their inner empty space, which not only can result in relationship issues, but it resurfaces once they're alone. Internalized or hazardous shame causes us to blame ourselves and/or blame our partner. It can foster emotions of disappointment and unlovability that are hard to shake. We may feel guilty and accountable not only for our own imperfections and actions, but also the emotions and actions of our partner, such as blaming ourselves for our spouse's affair. Harmful shame usually starts in youth. Breakups can also activate grief that more appropriately relates to early adult abandonment. Many people get in relationships trying to find genuine love, wishing to solve unmet needs and wounds from youth. We can get caught in a negative cycle of desertion that types shame, fear, and abandoning relationships. If we feel unworthy and expect rejection, we're even accountable to provoke it. Healing our past permits us to live in the present time and respond properly to others. The stages of sorrow. One thing that I see over and over is that people expect themselves to just proceed. Well-meaning friends and family members may advise you to, only to make you feel worse. Or they devalue the ex you still really love and yearn for, which can make you embarrassed of your emotions or that you might still want the relationship. Many victims of abuse still long for their ex. It's more practical to honor your emotions and recognize that they're normal. You might find yourself biking through these phases of sorrow. Denial. Can't actually believe it's over, the reason given, or that your ex does not want or really love you. Find out if you're in denial. Anger. Anger and bitterness toward your ex, and perhaps envious of somebody taking your place. Bargaining. Trying to get your ex back, even if just in your head. Guilt. About your conduct can be connected to embarrassment of feeling not enough. Sadness. Consisting of unhappiness. Acceptance. You might feel upset in the early morning and really believe you moved on, only to break down in tears by the afternoon. This is normal as you process your emotions. It's natural to long for your ex more when you are lonely, so balance alone time with activities with good friends. Chapter 3. Steps to recovering from an adulterous affair. While marital therapists rarely take an extramarital affair lightly, two aspects of this type of transgression are specifically crucial for both clients and clinicians to recognize. First and foremost, an affair is a traumatic memory. I know they're as typical as daytime television, but the shock and subsequent psychological destruction that an affair can trigger might significantly lower a victimized partner's self-confidence. It might also shift the balance of relational power with blinding speed. The lasting effects are next to unrealistic to entirely eliminate, leaving the victim with a tradition of anger, hurt, and gnawing distrust. The wrongdoer is often left to come to grips with shame, retribution from friends and family, and the finality of the relationship. Second, affairs are a lot tougher to stop than many people care to admit. One would like to think that following the direct exposure, the womanizer ends the affair and returns home. While this does happen, frequently the affair, especially if it's close to home, as most are, that is, with a boss, coworker, friend, or next-door neighbor, appears time and time again like one of those hard-to-kill monsters from a scary film. This is truer if the affair was elevated to a physical status, and the primary relationship fails to enhance quickly following exposure of the disobedience. A taken advantage of customer of mine sarcastically called an affair the gift that continues giving. A lot has been written something about affairs in both expert and well-known literature. The works of Emily Brown and the late Shirley Glass and Frank Pittman are perhaps the most significant on the subject. However, simply because affairs appear to be a component in our society, they continue to merit our attention. In this vein, the following 11 reparative steps can help rebuild a couple's fractured post-affair relationship. Step 1. Discover the reason for the affair. Barring compulsive sexual behavior or individual pathology, affairs tend to be symptomatic of a relational issue. It is because of that essential to discover the underlying issue as quickly as possible to de-escalate relational strife, which intensifies the offender's need to take solace in a lover's arms. Step 2. Consider your history. Affairs run in families. If, for instance, one of your parents had an affair, you may model this conduct in an effort to get your needs met. Learning to be assertive and reveal your desires directly can be practical in breaking this generational transference process. Step 3. The wrongdoer must take some responsibility for having the affair. If the upsetting partner stops working to show remorse, the likelihood for reparation is slim. The exact same can be said if the wrongdoer refuses to apologize. The expression of anger alone provides less opportunity for healing. Step 4. The non-offending spouse must accept responsibility of making a contribution to the system that produced the affair. Just because an affair is often symptomatic of a dysfunctional relationship dynamic, both parties probably have, in some way, contributed to the dynamic. A rejection on the victim's part to take some responsibility may only serve to fuel the offender's anger and justify the act of betrayal in the transgressor's mind. Unfortunately, too many victims view this systemic principle as blaming the victim. Step 5. Each partner should have an actual chance to vent. Most offending mates want to quelch conversation of the affair. Even so, the victimized partner must be allowed a proper amount of time to vent emotions, including, but not limited to, anger. Time is up, though, if venting is used mainly as a damaging ram to embarrass and torture the wrongdoer. The angering partner should be enabled to sign up complaints against the mate and the marital system. Step 6. Feel sorry for one another. Because it at times takes two to produce an affair, it could be more practical to honestly recognize and acknowledge the pain each of you is experiencing. Step 7. Do not strike back in kind against the offending spouse. Some couples turn an affair into a power struggle. If your partner has cheated, try not to respond in kind. This may only put the so-called nail in the coffin of your relationship. If you are ego-dystonic with cheating, you may only shame yourself by the retribution. Step 8. Remember the great times. Try not to forget the enjoyable experiences you showed your partner. Waxing nostalgic in some cases motivates a higher effort to save a relationship. Step 9. The angering spouse must stop all contact with the lover. The angering partner must cease all contact with the lover. This is necessary to reconstructing trust in their main relationship. If the offender has dabbled in the work environment, quitting or moving to another department may be an invited sign of marital commitment, if economically practical, naturally. Step 10. The taken advantage of partner ought to never pursue the partner's lover. The idea is to detriangulate the lover, not bring the lover deeper into your relationship. The issue lies between the two partners and should be kept there. Besides, confronting your partner's lover might prove to be unsafe. Step 11. Keep the lines of communication open. Because our society appears to hold a certain attraction to affairs, it'll be hard to get away the past. TV, motion pictures, music, and even random gossip may serve as reminders of your trauma. It is essential for each partner to stay patient and empathetic, and to continue to permit productive conversation on the subject as this need develops. Repression may make it possible for a festering of the problem. If you and your partner can effectively work out these 11 steps, perhaps each of you are going to forgive yourselves and each other for the trauma of the affair. It won't be simple. It'll take an optimum effort on both sides to save the relationship, and only the two of you can decide whether it's worth the effort. Chapter 4. After an affair. The details of affairs differ: where and when they begin, whether or how they stop. What was it that pulled everyone in? Most affairs eventually end, simply because the affair is found and closed down. Simply because it liquefies on its own as it moves past the oxytocin-fueled chemistry of the early stage and starts to seem more and more like the relationship they are both attempting to leave from. Or because someone feels tremendous guilt or fears a divorce and losing custody of a child. Whatever the initial cause or the result, there is psychological figuring out to do on both sides. What has truly happened, and why did this happen at all? There are some interrelated lessons embedded in affairs. Here are the leading 4. Number 1. Finding what's broken. No-brainer here. What you grumble ready to your new lover can give you a hint about what is broken in your main relationship. That you are tired, that there's inadequate love or sex, that you are lonely, that you really need to be heard and not slammed or micromanaged. Through and or in spite of the chemistry, you get a clear sense of what's not working or missing in your relationship. Sadly, you only completely recognize it until you get a taste of it in other places. Number 2. Realizing what you really need. The concept here is actually that it is all eventually not about the relationship and what the beginner gives you that your main partner other doesn't, but a realization, once outside your regular roles and regimen, about what you really deeply need. Here the relationship is a medium or a metaphor of what you really need to make your life more satisfied or natural, a life that represents more totally of who you are. Number 3. Acknowledging what you are fed up with. At some level, those who participate in affairs feel that they deserve to have the affair. The emotions here are strong. It's not simply, "We haven't made love in 2 weeks," or "You leave hair in the restroom drain." It has to do with an unfairness, a fed-up feeling about how much you do that you don't feel is valued or reciprocated, or that is dismissed or criticized. The anger about the bathroom drain is typically the idea of the iceberg of somebody's feelings. The emotions are also old and deep, and usually have to do with old childhood wounds. "I've been dealing with this treatment all my life," your little kid brain says, "and now I am done." Number 4. Understanding what is very important. Somewhere in the middle of all this, you ideally get to a decision point about what is really essential to you. This is about values. What you truly, really believe is important in life, rather than adopting the values of others to please them. And about vision. Your view of your ideal life, your priorities as you sort through work, relationship, family, faith, and so on. What you can eliminate. If you can enable yourself to get beyond the preliminary, "I'm sorry, let's carry on" stage and put in the time to really reflect, deeper questions and ideas should begin to sneak out of the shadows. If the affair revealed you what is broken, what you need, and what you are fed up with, then what's the real moral of the story? The incorporation of this experience? What do you want to build your life around? What do you need to change now to make your life represent who you are? What does the affair tell you? What you have a hard time to do in intimate relationships and really need to do to not have more affairs? Even if it is a moving target, what's your vision of the future? And do you have the nerve to present that to your partner, understanding that there is a threat that his or her vision might be absolutely different? Chapter 5. What if you love them both? You have been caught in a long-lasting affair, and your spouse has given you a final notice. It's her or him or me. So comprise your mind. What now? Do you stay in the marriage? Do you run off with your affair partner? Or do you try to, in some way, keep both relationships intact? When confronted with such a final notice, most cheaters have one of three reactions. They understand how much they value their spouse, and it is obvious that the affair must end for the sake of the marriage and all that goes with it. They recognize that their marriage is dissatisfied to the point that it is not worth defending, and they should most likely ignore it. They understand they care deeply for both their spouse and their affair partner, and they experience feelings of obscurity and indecision as a result. If you are wondering which response is most typical, it is the one that doesn't include immediate clarity. That is because a person who has had a long-lasting affair behind his or her partner's back is usually mentally attached to both individuals. For the cheater, the spouse offers stability, a house life, kids, history, security, family, community, and so on. Meanwhile, the affair partner offers enjoyment, emotional escape, sexual intensity, and perhaps even a newly found raison d'être. As such, it is unsurprising that cheaters would often prefer, in their dreams, to maintain the status quo, hoping that both their partner and their affair partner will make sacrifices to keep them happy. By the way, if you think this sort of having your cake and eating it too situation is a sensible possibility, then there's a beautiful bridge in Brooklyn that I'd like to sell you. I am talking about extramarital affairs with an emotional element, rather than casual sexual encounters and other non-emotionally intimate forms of cheating. People who have ongoing concerns with non-intimate cheating may have an issue with sex or love. If so, help can be discovered in treatment and in 12-step recovery groups like SLAA, SAA, SCA, and SA. For cheaters who've been given an ultimatum, a choice must be made: the marriage or the affair. This looks like such an easy thing, yet most cheaters find themselves waffling between the two alternatives. One minute they are desperate to save their marriage. The next minute they wonder how they could potentially live without the enthusiasm of their affair. Oddly, the cheaters who are charged with making this decision usually don't understand that they're the fortunate ones just because they actually have a say in the outcome, while their partner and their affair partner are left dangling. So anytime my cheating clients begin to feel like a victim, I carefully remind them that they are in a mess of their own making. They chose to get wed, and after that they chose to cheat. They have no one to blame but themselves. Needless to say, this choice can be hard to make in the best of circumstances, and the added pressure of trying to be fully married and or fully participated in an affair can be crippling. As such, I often suggest that cheaters take a time out from both the marriage and the affair. For many cheaters, temporarily moving in with a relative or a friend while staying away from both the spouse and the affair partner develops the space that's needed for reliable self-exploration. That said, children really need to be seen, and the business aspects of the marriage must still be attended to. I also advise that cheaters discuss their thoughts and emotions with neutral people, therapists, clergy, and so forth, in addition to relatives and good friends who are far more very likely to take sides. Eventually, the goal is to make the best long-term choice for everybody involved instead of a choice made just to relax things down, or to make the closest person feel better, or to control potential effects, or whatever. And no, I'm not going to say that remaining in the marriage is always the right choice, since that is not, in fact, the case. In truth, there are very likely to be numerous advantages and disadvantages with both relationships, and these should be thoroughly and fully analyzed before moving on. Evaluating a marital relationship. There is no straightforward formula for choosing if a marital relationship is worth fighting for. That said, sincere answers to the following questions will nearly always provide a degree of clarity. Do you enjoy spending time together? One of the primary reasons for remaining in a marriage is that it is fun and satisfying at least some of the time. Spouses should be counted as a buddy. So, do you enjoy each other's company? Do you play well together? Good marital relationships are built on shared interest. No, you do not need to enjoy all of your partner's activities and hobbies, or vice versa. But you do really need to have a few important things that you both enjoy. And yes, raising children together counts. Do you trust your partner? Trust is a necessary component in healthy relationships. If two people trust one another, if they know they have one another's backs no matter what, that is a solid relationship structure. Undoubtedly, your partner's rely on you is probably shattered at this moment, and rightfully so. So the real question here is whether you still implicitly trust your partner. Do you share core values? It is not necessary to agree on everything, but healthy couples do need at least a bit of commonalities regarding things like religion, politics, financial resources, education, kids, and so on. Are you able to disagree without exploding? In any relationship, dispute is unavoidable. When a marital relationship is healthy, disputes offer a development chance, a real chance to learn about each other and grow closer as a result. When a marriage isn't so healthy, even the smallest issue can become a smoldering bitterness and an obstruction to intimacy. Do you respect one another? Do you feel free to be your own individual? And do you value your spouse's right to the exact same? Are you and your partner able to respectfully, maybe even enjoyably, have separate opinions, activities, friendships, and so on? Do you support one another? Are you and your partner there for one another when the going gets rough? Do you each rejoice when the other has success and/or grows as an individual? If one of you wants to try something new and different, aside from sexual infidelity, of course, is that decision motivated and supported? Do you still turn each other on? Even the best marital relationships aren't hot and heavy forever. The honeymoon stage always passes. That said, if you're thinking of staying together, you probably really want and need at least a trigger of physical attraction. Are you both invested in the marriage? If you have cheated on your partner, you really need to accept that the damage you've done could be more than he or she is willing to accept. If so, there is absolutely nothing you can do about that. In regard to your own choice, you should ask yourself if you entered into the affair because you were trying to find a way out of your marriage, or if you started cheating more on impulse without thinking way too much about your spouse and marriage. Cheaters who answer yes to most of these questions most likely have a solid marital foundation upon which to build. That process is never ever simple, naturally, and cheaters should comprehend from the start that they'll never ever fully regain what they once had. In this respect, marriage is a lot like a delicate teacup. If you drop it and it shatters, you can glue it back together, but the fractures will always show. Even so, those cracks do not mean the teacup is not still lovely and worthwhile. I will go over the process of rebuilding a marital relationship post-infidelity in a future short article. Assessing an affair. If, after assessing the marriage, a cheater's decision is still unclear, then she or he should also assess the affair, comparing and contrasting in an effort to find some resolution. For starters, the cheater will really need to ask the exact same questions just like the marriage. Nonetheless, she or he should do this looking at both the present and the potential future. The fact that cheaters and affair partners enjoy hanging around together now, doing primarily romantic and/or sexual things, does not actually mean they will enjoy hanging out together 24/7, 365 until the end of time. As such, cheaters need to ask the following. Can you visualize yourself in a long-lasting relationship, maybe a marriage, with this person? Again, you really need to think about not just the immediate future, but down the road, keeping in mind that affairs are usually built on the excitement of illicit romance without the hassles of a deeper relationship. Home, kids, errands, chores, finances, etc. Honestly, when is the last time you did yard work with your affair partner? Do you want this sort of much deeper yet hassle-filled relationship with your affair partner? And, if so, is that desire reciprocated? If a cheater thinks that he or she would rather be with the affair partner, long-lasting, than with the spouse, that is his or her right. But cheaters who make this decision ought to continue with care, knowing that second marital relationships are more likely to end in divorce than first marriages. Deciding. Once again, there are no unalterable rules for determining which relationship is the right relationship. For the most part, impulses and honest answers to the above questions will act as an effective guide. That said, it is possible to still be torn with effective feelings for both the spouse and the affair partner. If so, there's one last question to ask. Who do you want to be with when you are old? Aging is an inevitability, and the majority of us have no interest in doing it by ourselves. So when you are old and gray and your sexual parts no longer work the way they did when you were young, who do you want to spend your days and nights with? With whom do you have the most history, the most shared interest, the most shared values? Which person do you have the most fun with when you're just sitting around? Who is the most convenient individual to speak with? Who do you trust with your fears and your ailments and your aging process? If the above analysis does not cause a clear decision, then the cheater is going to need to ask his or her spouse, and maybe the affair partner, for more time. It is perfectly reasonable to do this, even if it makes the other individual upset. After all, this is a decision that will impact both individuals, and perhaps others, kids for example, for a long time. So if the cheater is uncertain, the choice ought to not be made in haste. That said, cheaters should absolutely be honest about this, telling the partner that they know they really need to make a decision, but they have strong emotions both ways and really need more time to sort things out. And then, they need to let the spouse respond to that statement, nevertheless, he or she wishes, appreciating whatever it is that the spouse may be feeling. If cheaters are worried that telling their partner and/or their affair partner that they are struggling to choose who is more crucial will damage their relationship moving forward, I can only say that it might. Nonetheless, I can also say that honesty is the cornerstone of healthy intimacy, and the sooner a cheater starts with his, the better. If a cheater eventually decides to remain in the marriage, being sincere now about his or her current ambivalence is a jumpstart on the process of re-earning trust. Plus, the spouse will likely really appreciate that the supreme choice was made after careful consideration rather than in the heat of the moment. The exact same is very true if a cheater chooses to leave the marriage and go after a deeper relationship with the affair partner. Either way, if the cheater wants a healthier and happier relationship progressing, he or she is going to have to live differently, and that begins with sincerity and integrity. The sooner the better. Chapter 6. The actual reason why extramarital affairs are hard to stop. Most therapists do not treat couples when one partner is secretly having an adulterous affair. Even so, when the cheating spouse solicits individual therapy, many clinicians, particularly those trained in couples work, lean to saving the main relationship. They might deny this, but some of the brave living souls I have spoken to admit they consider themselves effective if they help rescue a marriage. And while that's a worthy goal, it might also be one of the reasons clinicians refrain from tutoring the adulterous spouse. Trying to find and finding the real reason for the affair might suggest a poor marital prognosis, even though discovering this info may ironically be the primary relationship's best chance to make it through. Naturally, these exact same therapists might ask the adulterous partner several standard questions, such as, when did the affair begin? Are you having an affair with someone at work? Do you consider yourself in love with this person? Are you planning to leave your partner? But many avoid encouraging the cheating client to seek the most crucial info needed to stop the affair in its tracks, which is the first order of business in helping an ailing marriage. No doubt, therapists really need to consider the most noticeable reasons for most affairs: abuse or neglect, incompatible sex, lack of attraction, unmet expectations, unrequited love, clashing interest and values, among others. And it is well known that most affairs start with a specific amount of commiserating. The cheating partner tells the potential lover how horrible his or her marriage is and what it is needed to reduce the pain. The potential lover reacts in kind. Both players suggest they can soothe one another, and the affair begins. If the affair is physically consummated, the therapist and preyed-on spouse might quickly find that it may be easier to separate two objects held in place by Gorilla Glue. So how does one truly stop an affair? Contrary to common belief, the clinician needs to understand only one critical principle to end an affair at any stage. The spouse who is having the affair is typically having an affair with somebody like his or her spouse. Yup, that's it. No need to get bogged down in simple facts such as the lover is perceived as a kinder and gentler individual, more affectionate, more attentive, or more physically attractive than the preyed-on spouse. These are givens, requirements for the job description of lover. Most therapists know full well that an affair is a fantasy operating in an artificial circumstance. Leave your partner for a lover and transition the affair into reality, and the reality will most likely be a harsh one. Scientists have found that the divorce rate after wedding someone's lover is around 85 to 90%. Yet time and again, people take the risk. Why? Spouses are drawn to their lovers in the same way they are drawn to their partners. That is, the same unconscious reasons that attracted them to their spouses are still running. We just cannot change our radar-like attraction to others without years of work, and the majority of people do not commit to this kind of process. It usually takes a little time before the reasons for the attractions show themselves, in part because all is relatively wonderful throughout an affair. However, eventually the qualities that the lovers show the taken advantage of spouse will start to expose themselves. If the cheating partner pays attention to them, rather than remain in a state of blissful denial, the resemblance, as subtle as they may be, will be acknowledged. Here is an example. One customer ultimately realized was a dreadful issue solver, just like his partner. Another customer learned that her lover was as controlling as her partner, and yet another concluded that his lover kept negative feelings, just as his marriage partner did. Some lovers might even physically look like the taken advantage of spouse. If the cheating partner is attracted to characteristics and tendencies in the lover that speak for themselves in their spouse, the real reason for the affair will emerge. The lover is just like the partner, a sense of morality regardless of, and may be so in a negative way at some time in the future. What are the ramifications for a marital relationship? First, affairs are usually a duplication waiting to happen. And second, affairs are often forged with the exact same magnetic power that a marital relationship is, usually rendering the affair as hard to break as a marital relationship. Hence, ending an affair, especially if it is long-lasting, may resemble a divorce. Only when the cheating partner recognizes the similarities and replications will that partner come to accept that the adulterous process is not likely to result in an enhanced choice of mate. The political thinker Hannah Arendt wrote, "Even the most radical revolutionary will become a conservative the day after the revolution." Chapter 7. Should the kids know you've had an affair? If you have had an extramarital affair, it's likely that no one else in your circle of friends knows. Perhaps even your partner doesn't know. No one knows for sure how typically affairs happen, but stats suggest that might affect 40% or more of all marriages. In spite of its prevalence, there is a cultural hush about extramarital sex. Many people just do not discuss it. Even when one spouse opens to another, it is quite likely that neighbors, parents, or caretakers and brothers or sisters might not have caught wind of it. However, within the personal privacy of your own home, it may be your secret affects your children as well. Is your affair a private matter to them, or should they know? Whose business is it? One of the most regular questions I get asked by couples who have been affected by adultery is whether they should tell their kids. When I reflect the question back to the couple, a well-known trick of psychotherapists all over, asking them what they think, often they will tell me that they don't think it's a very good idea, since the kids could be mentally harmed by finding out that one of their parents cheated on the other. People, typically the partner who has been betrayed by her or his partner, who argue in favor of revelation, actually believe that the children have a right to know why stress are high in the house, or, in some cases, why mommy and daddy decided not to cohabit in the exact same home. The basic answer to this question is that there is no basic answer to this question. If parents choose to say that an extramarital affair occurred, the info needs to be age-appropriate. The nature of monogamy could be a tough idea for very young children to understand, but most preschoolers that grow up in undamaged families have a basic sense that their parents are only supposed to be caring towards one another. As kids enter their school years, they master concepts such as rules, limits, and right and wrong. They might not yet comprehend about the specifics of sexual relationships, but generally, by middle school, most kids have a pretty good sense of where babies originate from. As children move into adolescence and teen years, well, you don't need an expert in psychiatry to tell you that they have a world, internet to be particular, of knowledge on relationships. Is it right to involve the children? But should parents or caretakers outline the affair, especially if a kid has the ability to understand the nature of extramarital sex? Let's look at the argument that such knowledge is hurtful. It is actually true that kids can be hurt by learning this inconvenient truth about one of their parents, and ideally, we should avoid unnecessarily hurting our kids at all expenses. Though, the unfaithful partner is mistaken to really believe the real pain caused by the affair happens at the moment the kid is told. No, the damage done to the child takes place at the moment that partner chose to go outside the marriage for an emotional or physical relationship. When an affair happens, it cheats the partner and the family of the love and dedication of a partner and parent. Telling the child might put an awful name on why a parent or caretaker has pulled away from the family, but it is ultimately calling a reality. And if there's just one thing that affairs teach us, it is how disastrous lies can be. I think it is also a mistake, however, to conclude that all children should be outlined in affair. When couples are affected by an affair, They have the difficulty of establishing an honest and open relationship, but they also have the task of reconstructing trust. Before the parent who has been cheated on presumes that the child must know, it's worth asking what the inspiration is. After all, if you've been a victim of the affair, you know it can generate a tsunami of negative feelings. When you turn to tell your children, are you sharing the knowledge with them simply because it's information they must know? Or are you telling them to vent your own anger or to inflict damage on your spouse? Your children should not be used for hurting others or as your personal therapists. So, should you tell your children about an affair? Here are some guidelines for helping you to make this essential decision. Most likely not. If the couple agree that they wish to remain in an intact marriage and continue to live together, and the individual associated with the affair is no longer in the picture, then there is probably no reason to involve the children. It's none of their business and might stir up negative feelings for everyone involved. Possibly so. Even when parents or caretakers stay together, if one of the people associated with the affair was a neighbor, instructor, or other individual who the family no longer has contact with, the kid may really need a much deeper understanding of why the friendship ended. Potentially so. If the couple continues to work on the marriage, but many people in the community already know the affair has happened, and there is a good likelihood that the kid will find out anyhow, it could be better to hear it from the parents or caretakers first. Probably so. If a couple chooses to stay together but are clearly in emotional turmoil related to the aftermath of the affair, then the children might really need to comprehend why their parents or caretakers are acting as they are. Probably so. If one partner wishes to separate from the other, either because the unfaithful one wants to continue the affair, or the impacted partner can't bear to live with an unfaithful mate, then if the children are of a proper age, they should have a clear clarification of what is going on. Moving forward. Safeguarding the well-being of your children is the most natural thing in the world. That is one good reason not to have an affair in the first place. However, if the devastating impacts of an affair have hit your family, then you should try to secure your children from the negative effects. Yet, if you can't find a way to peaceably overcome the aftermath of extramarital sex, then you might not be able to protect your kids from the truth. That means that both parents or caretakers must sit with the kids and get ready for a long talk. From that point on, the whole family has the obstacle of rebuilding together. Chapter 8. Will your marital relationship endure the affair? Nothing is more disastrous than finding that your supposedly faithful partner had, or is having, an affair. The fact that your spouse has lied to you, whether in words or in silence, adds offensive pain to this sexual betrayal. If the affair was continuous, it's regular for the hurt party to feel infuriated, depressed, crazy, disoriented, obsessed with the specifics of the affair, and convinced that nothing will ever be normal again. But as disastrous as an affair can be, do not automatically make it a deal breaker. If you and your partner have a substantial history together, and especially if you have kids, try to work it out. Bear in mind that an affair is not a terrible aberration that only occurs in dissatisfied marital relationships. It is a misconception that the real reason behind an affair is a faulty partner or bad marriage. A sexually and emotionally distant marriage will certainly make an affair more likely, but it's also true that affairs happen in outstanding marriages too. Affairs have many sources, and opportunity and work framework are among the predisposing aspects. As ravaging and crazy-making an affair may be, it does not need to spell divorce. I have seen couples heal from affairs once they're visible, and even improve their communication and closeness. For this positive result to occur, both parties really need to be committed to one another, to truth-telling, to avoiding future temptations, and to walking the long, rough path of healing and bring back trust. If you've been the unfaithful spouse, consider the outstanding guidance of psychologist Janice Abrams Spring, the author of After the Affair. Her counsel? Never ever encourage your partner to get over it. Instead, be readily available to hear your partner's pain and take it in. Do not wait in fear for her to bring it up again. Rather, open conversations yourself that let your partner know that you're continuing to think about the affair and that you will not leave her alone to carry the pain. Be absolutely present to hear her anger and sadness for as long as it takes, which may feel like forever and ever. Dr. Spring clarifies that if you really want your partner to let go of her pain, then you have to hold it. If you are the damaged party, consider couples counseling before applying for divorce on the one hand or pushing yourself to forgive on the other. Give your unfaithful partner the chance to make reparations and earn back your trust over time. Give yourself and your relationship the chance to heal and grow stronger. This is slow and difficult work, no question. However, if both of you are committed to healing, your marriage is well worth the effort. This has been Affair: Reasons and Preventative Measures for Extramarital Relationships. Written by Elsa Harbour. Affair: Surviving a marriage after a spouse has been cheating. Written by Elsa Harbour. Table of Contents. Chapter 1. The main reason why affairs eventually break down. Chapter 2. Affairs are about pleasure-seeking. Chapter 3. How to take full responsibility for an affair. Chapter 4. Questions you need to be asking yourself after his affair. Chapter 5. What you should know if you consider having an affair. Chapter 6. Signs and avoidance. Chapter 7. How the other woman or man fares after an affair. Chapter 8. The 3 main reasons why people have affairs. Chapter 1. The main reason why affairs eventually break down. While we can think of cases where affairs have ultimately turned into healthy marital relationships, Duke of Windsor, who relinquished the British throne, and Frank Lloyd Wright, the well-known American architect, each who appear to have finally found their soulmates, the majority of us mere mortals do not fare so well. Look up the length of affairs on Google, and apart from 1 or 2 night stands, the consensus is that most run their course in 6 months to 2 years. Here are some of the psychological foundations to affairs that sabotage their ability to end up being more than short or long exercises in acting out. Number 1. The affairing couple is united around shared suffering and enjoyment. Just as Romeo and Juliet were in part pushed together by being joined against their feuding families, what usually brings the affairing couple together is their shared unhappiness in their partners. This new person comprehends how I feel, as contrasted with my partner who does not. And like Romeo and Juliet, the beginning of the relationship brings enjoyment, of getting to know and feeling valued by a new person, of sharing your story to an interested listener, the enjoyment of breaking out, of the boxed-in life, of breaking guidelines, the enjoyment of new flesh and sex. But ultimately, all this fades. The talk of suffering gets old or wanes. The breaking out develops into being broken out. The backstory is told. The flesh is no longer new. The relationship settles, and when it does, other elements of each other's character, unnoticed before, rise to the surface. What each other finds is another variation of what they don't like in their partners. Number 2. Those involved in the affair actually don't know each other. Yet, not only do their shared torment and the excitement blind them to seeing each other better, so do their needs and disappointments with their partners. The beginner is less a very real person and more an unperson, the seeming reverse of the partner. Where he was remarkable, this new person is steady. Where she was steady, this person is spontaneous and fun-loving. Where he was critical, this person is so authorizing and thoughtful. Yeah, the new person may be a lot like this, but these qualities are only and unnaturally amplified by their contrast to the partner. The complex self is decreased to an easier, one-dimensional one. Number 3. Everyone is on their best conduct. Dating is different from living with a person. The rubbing of lives, the grind of everyday routines develop stress, dullness, a host of typical reactions that couples who see one another for limited amounts of time don't experience because behaviors are held in check. I do not want to spoil this time by talking about blank. The results are that not only are they not actually learning more about one another, regular issues and animosities are swept under the rug, are not fixed, and so only develop in time, normally leading to apparently out-of-the-blue explosive situations. Number 4. Oxytocin eventually drops. Oxytocin, the love hormonal agent that bonds people together, that ramps up the sex, that creates the falling in love feeling naturally, starts to wane after about 9 to 18 months. That is built into advancement, the need for both parties to stop looking into one another's eyes and return to work. When this happens, sex drops off, the enthusiasm and glow start to fade. This is particularly derailing for affairs at first built on physical chemistry. Number 5. Messiness and anguish ultimately take over. While some couples and societies endure extramarital affairs, turning an affair into a more permanent relationship eventually develops into a mess for most on a lot of levels. There are kids involved or money. There can be controversial legal action which is tailored to emphasizing the worst in all parties, and with this comes tension and guilt and sadness. Number 6. The exact same coping styles are still in place. At some basic level, having an affair is about cutting and running. Yeah, some folks feel the affair is only emerging because they have tired their efforts to enhance their partner relationship and it hasn't worked. They've given up, and in some ways, psychologically proceeded. Nevertheless, for many others, it is the opposite. They have been dissatisfied, but have not truly worked on the partner relationship and problems, and their overall coping style, particularly in possibly conflictual situations, is to keep away from. Those coping styles do not change in the affair. When the going gets tough in the affair, they cut and run again, all of a sudden ending it or moving forward to another someone new, and so the cycle continues. Lessons to learn. All this said, and morality aside for a minute, the ending of affairs can leave behind some helpful lessons that the people can choose to continue into their view of themselves and their partnered relationship. For some, it is the capability to see themselves in a new light, one that's less downtrodden, more attractive, and capable than they saw themselves before. This can be affirming, increase their self-esteem, embolden them to not continue to take what they get, but instead be more assertive and definitive. For the ones who were hedging about divorce, the affair offered a training wheel relationship that gave them the self-confidence that they could endure post-divorce, gave them the courage to do what they, in their hearts, have wanted to do for a long time. Finally, when affairs can be viewed as bad options to other issues, embedded within them was usually the opportunity to comprehend more clearly what one needed and wasn't getting, what was missing most in the partnered relationship. That information is vital and can be folded back into the partnered relationship, into future relationships, making them all the stronger. Chapter 2. Affairs are about pleasure seeking. The military sets standards relating to infidelity, and many, myself included, would say that our public authorities should also be held to a high requirement of conduct. Are these people just delighting in the fruits of their very public or lofty positions, the benefits of their power or notoriety? Definitely one of the advantages of their status is the all-set supply of groupies and hangers-on. As we look at these prominent people, the term self-indulgent enters your mind. Low-profile affairs are really common in the general population. Professionals report that in the general population, about 60% of men and 40 to 50% of women have affairs. More self-indulgence? Perhaps. Whether we condemn or excuse this conduct, it's interesting to explore what triggers the affairs and what the benefits and dangers are that accompany them. Within these portions lies an especially notable group I call forgotten spousal caretakers. What is a forgotten spousal caregiver? The term caregiver evokes somebody like Mary. She worked tirelessly for 2 years caring for her husband before he got cancer. Because of the fairly short, though uncomfortable time, people remained acutely familiar with her caregiving struggles, deeply supportive and ready to provide support. Even so, as years and decades roll by for long-term caretakers, friends and loved ones become fed up with, lose interest in, take for granted, never ever know about or simply forget what these caregivers face, year after year after year. Having actually worked with and spoke with many caretakers, and having actually been an 11-and-a-half-year caretaker myself, I know that long-lasting spousal caretakers are eventually forgotten. When that happens, they lose the support, psychological, and otherwise normally offered on the short term. Here are some examples. Alice's spouse contracted an unusual blood illness in his early 50s, leaving him completely dependent on her for the last 17 years. He has trouble with all motor skills and has difficulty speaking. Sex runs out of the question, as is meaningful discussion. Remco's marriage partner developed MS in her 30s. She is extremely pleased of Remco's care, but after 20 years of caregiving, he feels more like a dad than a partner, specifically when he cleans her after she uses the toilet. Lilith's husband has Alzheimer's and has slowly declined for 10 years. He no longer recognizes her and has new good friends, including a sweetheart at his care facility. Fred's partner fell and hit her head when she was 53. He has been looking after her for 18 years. While she still looks typical, she is not there anymore and finds it uncomfortable, emotionally and physically, to be touched. Ben's marriage partner was a triathlete. At the age of 32, she was struck by a hit-and-run driver while riding her bike. Badly handicapped, Ben has cared for her for over 30 years. Unable to work out and irritated by her condition, she has doubled in size and snaps angrily at Ben. Tens of millions of caretakers live comparable situations, experiencing what I call a roller coaster ride from hell. Normally a painful and thankless job, caregiving definitely does not attract groupies or power finders. Yet affairs aren't atypical for this group. 3 types of affairs, typically amongst this group, trend in a different way for males and females. Connecting a non-emotional connection for the purpose of having intimacy is chosen by more guys than women. Men appear to have easier access to this. Conventional affairs are preferred by more women than guys. These are longer, long-lasting, with an emotional and also physical part. Psychological affairs are the most typical for both sexes. The caretaker becomes mentally connected with a partner, but never ever crosses that physical line. Most internet affairs fall right into this category. Which caregivers have affairs and with whom? More men divorce their ill wives than the reverse, so less of them are in for the long run. And some caregivers were having affairs before their spouse became ill, so I omit them from this group. Of the ones who stay married and have affairs, most say they never considered an affair before their infirm spouse changed drastically, either being spiteful or incapacitated. As a matter of fact, a lot of these caregivers shock themselves by having affairs. Women typically mention that they wish they had the energy to have one. Some caregivers prefer affairs with other caretakers. Being with someone who comprehends without needing to say a word is a blessing. They can easily go over concerns and complaints without feeling guilty, and their lover comprehends when health emergency situations preclude together time. Other caretakers prefer to be with somebody completely unassociated to caregiving. When they take breaks from their responsibilities, the last thing they want to think or talk about is caregiving. When do affairs begin? It seems that if a marriage was solid before the health problem, and the ill person treats their partner with respect, an affair may never happen. Or, it could be delayed several years depending upon how immobilized the partner is and whether their condition is terminal. Not magic numbers, 3 to 5 years seems to be the start of permanently changed marital characteristics. More than likely, there is more hooking up at these early phases, but when partners count their caregiving time in decades, their lives have changed so totally that they create a new survival identity for themselves. An affair might be central to that survival. What do affairs provide? Physical needs are met without emotional entanglement and hookups. Forgotten spousal caretakers are deeply enmeshed in caregiving and have ample complications in their lives. Most have no psychological energy to spare to get their physical needs met. Supporting is provided in the traditional affair to those caregivers longing for the emotional connection they lost with their spouse. Rather than sex per se, typically it is the hand-holding, hugging, cuddling, gentle conversation and laughter, and a sense of feeling safe that most appear drawn to. Feeling wanted and appreciated comes from the affairs. Both women and men enjoy having attention focused on them for a significant change, and being desired for other than their nursemaid skills. Affairs supply a lifeline for many. It is the one apparently sane and beautiful thing they have in their lives, a time when they can feel like a man or a woman again, that there's something other than disease in their world. A sense of normalcy is provided. That can come from participating in fun activities they can no longer do with their partner, like dancing or other couple pursuits. Affairs revitalize caregivers. Rather than resenting their spouse for destroying their life, the time with their new lover renews them so they can go home and be a better caregiver. Having a person to speak to share all their concerns and concerns drops tension levels. What do affairs cost? Guilt, whether religious or otherwise, is consistent with all affairs. It's considerably magnified if caregivers are with their lover when their partner is rushed to the hospital or passes away. Dignity, self-esteem, and pride are lost. Surprisingly, some feel they also get these from the affair, so handle this dichotomy. Downtime is lost addressing a lover, and unforeseen psychological issues might develop, particularly if the lover wants more than the caretaker can offer. Trust is lost when the affair is found. Like all affairs, along with retribution from members of the family, legal action might be taken and assets lost, especially devastating when decades of caregiving have already diminished assets. Affairs normally end, so hurt is almost inevitable. Caregivers may end an affair, hurting their lover, because their partner is still their primary commitment and top love. If a caretaker is the rejected lover, it is ravaging simply because they have lost their lifeline. They may fall into a double depression facing both the death of the affair and now having to cope with their partner's disease 24/7. There may be no one to talk with about this since their lover was their only confidant. Whether to condemn or excuse affairs, or to feel they're self-indulgent or critical to survival, are deeply personal factors to consider. Chapter 3. How to take full responsibility for an affair. In 2009, Governor Mark Sanford of South Carolina disappeared for 6 days on a hike and then admitted to having been in Argentina with a woman with whom he was having an affair. He held several press briefings in which he confessed to lying to his partner, his children, his staff, and the people of his state, all of whom he deserted for a full week. He mentioned, "I take full responsibility for my ethical failures." Though, as Sanford quickly demonstrated, saying you take full responsibility for an affair doesn't mean you actually do. Regardless of calls for him to resign, a reasonable expectation for anybody who disappears from their job for an entire week, Sanford refused and remained in office for the rest of his term. In this and many other ways, regardless of consistently and publicly claiming to take full responsibility for his actions, Sanford actually took none. Complicated taking full responsibility with admitting wrongdoing. What Sanford actually meant when he mentioned he took full responsibility for his affair was that he completely admitted to having one. Indeed, if you replace the phrase, "I take full responsibility for having an affair," with "I completely admit to having an affair," Sanford's subsequent actions make far more sense. For instance, he claimed he wanted to save his marriage, but his marriage partner ultimately declared divorce after many not successful efforts at reconciliation. These efforts were no doubt torpedoed by the fact that Sanford never actually left his mistress. In fact, he proposed to her not long after he was formally divorced. By misinforming his wife and continuing to lie to her, Sanford showed a total lack of responsibility. Confessing wrongdoing is an important primary step, but it is just that, a first step. Unless the individual having the affair is willing to take honest actions, deal with effects, and put in the consistent effort of restoring and fixing their harmed relationships, they're by definition not taking responsibility. How to take full responsibility for an affair. There are many things one should do when taking full responsibility for an affair. By no means is the following list extensive. Reforming a broken relationship, healing emotional injuries, and rebuilding trust is hard, uncomfortable, time-consuming, and not always effective, but it can be done, particularly if the individual who cheated commits to the following. Stop the affair, obviously. One can't fix a relationship with a partner while one has contact with the other individual. Taking full responsibility for someone's actions means stopping the affair and ceasing all contact. Figure out why you had an affair, including the reasons, inspirations, triggers, excuses, justifications, chances, and scenarios that allowed it to happen. Find out what you prepare to do if and when each of the reasons, motivations, triggers, excuses, validations, chances, and situations appear again, just because they most likely will. Be prepared to listen and talk when your partner needs you to. Taking full responsibility means being ready to help your partner recover when they really need you to be there for them, whether you're in the mood to talk or not. Keep away from guaranteeing it will never ever happen again until you have determined the why. Taking full responsibility means not promising things you can't ensure. Unless you have dug deep and determined why you cheated, you do not have adequate premises to actually believe you won't do it again. Fear, remorse, and regret aren't enough deterrents. They fade with. Contain your partner's feelings. Your partner will go through cycles of feeling close and distant, loving and despiteful, trusting and suspicious, and other emotional extremes. Taking full responsibility means it is your job to be comprehending, supportive as they go through these cycles. An example would be the following. They may feel relying on and enjoying one moment, then feel silly for feeling trusting and loving, then feel rage at you for making them so unable to trust their own feelings. Yes, it's hard to consist of another individual's quickly moving emotions, but since you caused them, it is your responsibility to do so. Provide openness. If you really want your partner to trust you again, you have to demonstrate that you are trustworthy. For instance, if they want to look at your phone, let them. Don't roll your eyes and do not inquire why they need to check your phone. By rolling your eyes, you're lessening the fact that your actions made it hard for them to trust you. Taking full responsibility means understanding that building trust takes time and can't be hurried. Instead, try to invite such requests as chances to soothe your partner's suspicions and prove yourself trustworthy. So turn over your phone with an easy, "Sure, here it is." When it comes time to analyze what elements of the relationship were not working, what the betrayed partner may have been doing wrong, it is important to do so with the clear and expressed understanding that whatever wasn't working in the relationship in no way excuses or validates the affair. Taking full responsibility means recognizing it was your job to discuss your dissatisfactions with your partner and not act them out. The bottom line is truly taking full responsibility for an affair should always be followed by weeks and months of actions and consequences. Otherwise, you're not being responsible at all. You are just confessing you got caught. Chapter 4. Questions you need to be asking yourself after his affair. "His affair is driving me crazy," my client declared after sitting on my couch. "I can't sleep. I'm hardly eating. And all I want to do is keep an eye on where he is and what he is doing. I can't think about anything else. I am not even sure how to react. What should I do?" Over the past few years, I have had many women share similar experiences and ask the exact same question. As a result, I have developed a list of 5 questions you can ask yourself if your partner has been cheating. Question number 1. What is the best response after finding my husband's cheating? Soon after finding adultery, it's typical to have a worried mind that feels out of control. It is usually hard to focus and almost impossible to remain on job. As a result, directly after discovering that your partner has cheated, it is best to avoid making any rash choices. Let me give 2 examples that highlight the problem of reacting without thinking. In the first example, a client said to her partner just several days after discovery that she forgave him. A couple of months later, after seeing that his affair was not over, she realized that fast forgiveness, what James Abram Springs refers to as cheap forgiveness, wasn't useful and, in fact, might have added to her husband's ongoing betrayal. She wondered aloud, did my forgiving him make him think it wasn't that huge of a deal? In the second example, a woman right after discovery told her spouse that their marriage was over and that there was no hope for repair work. Over the next few weeks, she realized that she did not really want a divorce, but as a result of her initial response, he had stopped attempting to fix their marriage. His relationship with the other woman had ended, but his pride and her aversion to open up and discuss her true emotions stopped them from having a meaningful discussion about what they both truly wanted. In both of these cases, rash statements prevented the change and healing process. While it is pretty common to make quick judgments, a better reaction is to decrease and think through what has happened. I typically tell people that discovery of an affair is like getting into a horrible car accident. Initially, you are in shock and might say and do things that you would not do under regular circumstances. Once you have gathered your senses and have stabilized, your responses will be more reliable. A really good guideline is to stay away from making any essential choices right after discovery. As you collect more info, you will be able to make an informed decision rather than a rash choice in the height of emotion and stress. I have found that by decreasing the choice about if the relationship should or should not continue, the recommitment process enables time for couples to process what changes really need to be made in order to recover. You can read more of my ideas on this topic here. Question number 2. Am I experiencing trauma signs? After discovering your partner's affair, it is very common to experience signs associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Unfortunately, lots of people misconstrue PTSD and really believe that such symptoms only manifest in individuals getting home from war or who have been in a mishap. PTSD can manifest in several ways and might exist in up to 70% of individuals after discovery of sexual betrayal. Since research suggests that trauma symptoms are common, it might benefit you to recognize which of the symptoms of PTSD you might be experiencing. The symptoms for identifying PTSD are as follows: feeling of threat to life, reliving the event, avoidance of people, places, and activities previously taken pleasure in, negative state of mind and cognitions, or I am not satisfactory, emotional arousal and reactivity, meaning anxiety, hypervigilance. Question number 3. How has his affair changed how I feel about myself? After discovering your spouse's betrayal, it is extremely typical to start internalizing what happened. You may find yourself saying things like, "What is wrong with me?" or "Was I just not enough for him?" I have witnessed people who are typically strong and self-confident experience considerable insecurity and fear after discovery. Their whole lives have shifted from feeling protected and safe to anxiousness and fear. They have internalized their partner's conduct and now feel like there's something wrong with them. If you find that you are internalizing what your partner did by blaming yourself, that is actually very typical. I feel like my partner acts out because I am not satisfactory. While I thought the number would be high, I was extremely shocked that almost 77% reported that they felt that way at the very least half of the time. What I have found is that this kind of internalization doesn't help the issue. Truth be told, it leaves women further traumatized. If they believe their partner's sexual betrayal is their fault, each time their partner acts out, they will feel again that they're not enough. Such beliefs do not ever make the strong pain go away. I have found that by answering for sexual betrayal, somehow we think we can manage the result. It sounds something like this in the mind. If I was better, he wouldn't have done this. So if I look better, reduce weight, and have more sex, his affairs will stop. Regrettably, ideas like this seldom produce the change that actually needs to happen after an affair. This is particularly true when sexual betrayal stems from sexual compulsiveness. So how can you recover? If you are going to recover from betrayal, the answer lies within you. Learning to see yourself as a person of deep worth and value is a great starting point. The distinction is that as you gain internal strength, you will naturally create boundaries in your relationship. You'll understand that you matter and that such behavior isn't fine. As you take these steps, the negative self-talk and feelings of self-blame dissolve. If you are handling your spouse's betrayal, ask yourself these 3 questions. What is the best way to react after his affair? Am I experiencing trauma? And what is the level of my trauma? How has the affair changed how I feel about myself? If you ask yourself these questions, you will make more informed choices about your relationship, understand that what you are experiencing is trauma, and that the negative ideas that you have been having about yourself simply aren't real. Chapter 5. What you should know if you consider having an affair. When lured by an affair, we're better off doing some soul-searching or going into treatment to discover what is not working for us with our partner. When we make the transfer to pursue an affair, we risk going into the Bermuda Triangle of love. Once we have had 2 lovers, we might feel we need both. In the invigorating enjoyment of a new affair, we might think we're just going to have a quickie and please an urge. We have been with our partner for some time and feel we have been losing out on the variety of experiences our single good friends are having. We might rationalize that this has nothing to do with our feelings of our partner. The affair might end up being a one-off thing, and then we just need to contend with our guilty conscience. However, In some cases, we fall in love with our lover. After all, we have different experiences of ourselves with different people, and no one partner is perfect. Now we want both our partner and our lover. That can feel like being trapped in the Bermuda Triangle. Love triangles. Triangles are naturally stable structures. Take an example from the real world. Tall radio or television antenna often have stays, which are wires that run at an angle away from the antenna and are anchored some range away. Stays protect the otherwise unsteady pole that sticks directly out of the ground. This is also true in relationships. In families, kids or maybe even pets regularly offer a third to stable the romantic relationship between two people. A third person permits us to be separate from our main relationship without having to contend with being alone. In every partnership, there's a battle between maintaining a connection and simultaneously maintaining our sense of individuality. We have contrasting desires for togetherness and separateness. We need to be a part of the relationship and also be apart from it as individuals. For instance, we can be from our spouses but not alone, just because we're with our kids. In romantic triangles, we get to experience ourselves as separate from our partners and yet not alone by being with our lover. No easy way out. The obvious problems emerge when our partner or lover finds out about the other, or we weary of maintaining the lies and the slipping around, or the guilt overcomes us and we feel like we really need to decide. How do we choose which when we feel we need both? When we think of ending the affair, we understand that our primary relationship probably hasn't changed. Whatever problem led us to look beyond it is most likely still there, if not worse. If it feels better, we have no way of understanding whether it would continue to feel that way if we break off with our lover. Either way, we don't want to lose what we are getting from our lover. So, we think of leaving our partner. However, when we understand we don't know what it is like to be with our lover without also having a partner. If our lover doesn't know we have a partner, we have been keeping a big secret from them and are scared our lover would decline us for who we actually are. If the lover knows we're cheating, then we might not respect them because they are complicit. So, we return to thinking about ending the affair. What to do? The obsessive cycle has no end. We go back and forth trying to make the right choice. We are stuck in a vortex of unpredictability while hurting those closest to us. These triangles can go on for many years. Frequently, the triangle is solved when either our partner or the lover chooses that they have had enough and leaves. Then we're entrusted the one that has tolerated our cheating. We might devalue this person. We may think something must be wrong with them if they want to endure us. That can result in our feeling we are entrusted to second best and yearning for the one that escaped. When we find ourselves entering one of these triangles, or if we're already in one, we really need to speak to a person who cares about us. When pursuing an affair, we're looking for a connection we aren't getting with our partner. So, connecting with a friend or family member relating to the affair may help. In some cases, just talking with someone else can help sort out what we're feeling. If we don't have someone we think will understand, it is beneficial to consider finding a therapist with whom to meet. Chapter 6. Signs and Avoidance. We've definitely come a long way societally since the days of President Bill Clinton, who famously denied having sex with Monica Lewinsky, meaning no sexual intercourse, back in the 90s. I see new couples weekly who are coming in because one of the partners has had an emotional affair. The hurt, loss of trust, and grief are just as devastating as sexual affairs. Sometimes the emotional affair is plainly a full-blown affair, with "I really love you" text messages minus sex. Other times, the couple starts by arguing over whose reality is right. Is it a psychological affair or talking with a buddy? I think of emotional affairs as moving along a continuum. You have lunch with a buddy and grumble about your relationship, or you both do. Normally, you are probably talking about things that you haven't said to your partners in the same way and would be upsetting to them if they were sitting together with you. However, emotional affairs aren't almost grumbling about aggravations, but also about intimacy. It is the depth of the conversation, the sharing of intimate details that would embarrass or feel like an infraction to the partner, that creates the intimacy of an emotional affair. Yes, individual treatment sessions are intimate in their own way, but they're one-sided. The therapist is not talking about his or her troubles to you. Emotional affairs always start as two-sided. Everyone is leaning on the other. They usually have similar problems and find support and validation and bonding in this sharing. As you move down the emotional affair continuum, the variety of subjects broaden. Each person mentally leans on the other more. There are more lunches and/or lunches vacate less public places. Texting throughout the day increases. There is more focus on the other. You anticipate seeing them. They fill more of your thoughts. You reorganize your schedule to see and talk to them. The emotional side of a psychological affair is taking hold. And with this usually comes secrecy, not mentioning those lunches with your partner, erasing text. This is a huge red flag and symptom, and what typically includes this is pangs of guilt. Nevertheless, you continue anyway. That is an essential time in the development of an affair. The secrecy and guilt are indications that you know you are doing something that if your partner knew about, it would hurt him or her, but you continue anyway. This relationship and your emotions about it have taken top priority over the one with your partner. Some folks are able to put on the brakes at this point and end it or at least pull it back. Others don't and go till they get caught. Emotional affairs are, like most relationship problems, bad options to other issues, individual ones, relationship ones, and normally a mix of both. Here are some questions to help you start to put a possible psychological affair in better perspective. Why now? Why are you being so included with someone new rather than, such as in 2015? What does this tell you about what is going on in your life that you are dealing with most? Why this person? The fact that you are being involved with this individual, rather than somebody else, tells you something about what you really need now. It may be feeling validated or supported, feeling attractive or appreciated, feeling needed or needing to break out of your autopilot boring life. I see a lot of folks who, on the heels of getting busted, identify their affair as just silly, and they don't know why they did it. However, they're not stupid, and they do know why they did it. They did it just because they were getting something that they needed, or didn't recognize they needed. Eventually, these needs should not be swept under the rug, but brought into their partnered relationship. If this is a bad resolution to other issues, what are those problems? You and your partner have been living like roomies for several years. You are both too child-centered and there is no us. You and your partner disagree about cash, sex, kids, forever, and you're done with having a problem with and not being a group. You are having a 30 or midlife crisis. You feel stuck in a box of a life which you have created that no longer fits you. You are done with doing what you should do and instead want to do what you want to do. You are depressed. You're upset. Find the hidden issues. Psychological affair prevention. Simply because psychological affairs are usually in the eyes of the beholder, it helps to draw up early in your relationship everyone's comfort zones, emotional triggers, and bottom lines, expectations, and guidelines of engagement. Being friends with anyone of your attractive sex might be enough to set off insecurity, or perhaps it's still talking with your ex. Or for some couples in more open marital relationships, sex is not the threat, but psychological intimacy, too many details about us, that's the no-no. Or is it about secrecy? I do not care who you see or what you talk about as long as you aren't hiding it from me. Define and honestly negotiate win-win compromises and the guidelines of engagement as an early stage as possible. Too late is far too late. If you just accommodate to what your partner wants to keep away from a battle, it will at some time likely return to bite you. Chapter 7. How the other woman, or man, fares after an affair. Adultery is a love triangle in which a third party wants to have a surreptitious affair with a person in a sexually special relationship. Evolutionary psychologists call the affair partner a mate poacher because the aim could be to take someone else's lover for oneself. In some cases, affair partners are just searching for casual sex with somebody who seems to be mentally unavailable. Other times, affair partners are trying to find a long-lasting relationship. In some cases, that mating method succeeds, as the unfaithful partner and the affair partner may go on to have a growing, long-lasting relationship. However, regularly, that mating technique is not successful and may end with significant heartbreak for the affair partner. Extramarital affairs are typically seen as symptoms of a struggling marriage. Recovery from adultery for this reason needs eradicating the sign, that is, terminating the relationship with the affair partner and dealing with the underlying marital problems of which the affair was symptomatic. As a repercussion, affair partners are at times dumped unceremoniously, as unfaithful partners try to reconcile with their betrayed partners. Affair partners could be sad if they had seen their unfaithful partners as their ultimate life partners, once their unfaithful partners left their betrayed spouses for them. How do such people recuperate from their heartbreak? Jane, a single woman, came to see me, simply because she had been having an affair with a family man for the last 5 years. Her affair partner, John, was the love of her life. John was married with 2 children. He said he was unhappily married, but was just waiting for the right time to end the marriage. Jane came for therapy because all her girlfriends thought she was foolish to continue the affair and had wearied of having compassion with her predicament. Jane found weekends and vacations to be both lonesome and humiliating, as she followed John's family on Facebook, where they published pictures of one huge happy family always having a great time. Jane only saw John weekdays after work, when they had several drinks together and returned to her apartment or condo to have sex. In listening to Jane's story, I thought what all her girlfriends thought. John seemed to be just using her for casual sex, with no objective of ever leaving his marriage partner for her. He appeared to be an alcoholic and a phony, so it was not completely clear what his appeal was as a life partner. Yet Jane felt that if only others knew him in the more intimate manner in which she did, they would really appreciate his finer qualities. I just wondered if that were wishful thinking, and if Jane was in deep denial. I worried that Jane would just get angry at me if I tried to rupture her bubble. Ultimately, John's partner, Linda, discovered the affair when she found charge card expenses for jewelry that John had purchased as gifts for Jane. Linda required that John immediately end the affair and go for marital therapy, which he did without giving it a doubt. Jane got a call from John clarifying the situation. To stop more conversation, he added that he owed it to the mom of his kids to give the marriage a second chance, so it was for the best if they totally cut off all contact with one another progressing. Jane was shocked and disbelieving. Like a bolt out of the blue, her life had broken down, and all her future dreams were now shattered. How could she go on in life? Jane told me she was feeling suicidal, but reassured me she wouldn't do anything. Listening to all of this, I privately thought good riddance, as I didn't think John was such a great catch, and I thought Jane could do better. However, I knew it could be construed as unsympathetic at this moment to reveal what I truly thought, just because Jane felt she had just lost the love of her life. Healing in such a circumstance is biphasic. First, it means overcoming a serious loss, just like any other serious loss of a loved one. You need to put in the time to grieve, and after that, carry on. Second of all, It means coming to terms with the reality of the circumstance that your judgment was impaired by wishful thinking. That requires dealing with the fact that you had been living in a fool's paradise in a really self-defeating way. Years of your life have been wasted in a doomed relationship when you could have done far better if you had been better able to face the unpleasant reality. So what are the next steps? Number 1. Know that you're entitled to grieve. Yeah, affairs with married individuals are forbidden, but you were in love and your heart was broken. Your grief is real, even if others aren't sympathetic. Take your time to mourn. Number 2. Admit to wishful thinking. Yeah, some unhappily married people leave their spouses to live happily ever after with their affair partners. But unfaithful partners that lie to their partners may also be lying to their affair partners about their true intents. Don't let yourself be tricked again. Number 3. End up being a supporter for honesty. You were a partner in criminal offense. The unfaithful partner was a living lie, and you took part in that. You will feel better about yourself in the future if you give up secret relationships with people in sexually special relationships. In the future, be on the side of honesty rather than deceit. If a wed person wants a relationship with you, let them separate from their partner first so that every little thing can be out in the open. Paradoxically, a year later, John separated from his wife and wanted to resume his relationship with Jane on the assumption that it would lead to marriage and family. Yet by this time, Jane had lost interest. She had become disillusioned with John and now saw him as a self-centered person who felt entitled to having every little thing on his own terms and on his own schedule, no matter her needs and desires. John was no longer the sort of individual she wanted as a life partner. Jane was positive she could do better. Chapter 8. The 3 main reasons why people have affairs. They seem great at first, but may not provide what you actually really need. Affairs are not always what they appear to be. I just don't know what's wrong with him. I mean, we have been married for 25 years, and this just started happening in the last few. However, it keeps going on, in spite of his pledges to stop. Susie looked at the floor. Susie, what did your life together look like before all of this began happening? She looked up, then away from me, like she was looking back through time. We got married young, started a family, went to church. He moved up the corporate ladder. I looked after the kids. I'd say we were pretty typical. Sure, we battled. We have had periods of range, but nothing serious. At the very least, I thought. Then things changed. You discovered something. In spite of her obvious sadness, she nearly laughed. So typical. My husband was taking a nap on Sunday afternoon, and he left his phone on the cooking area counter. A text came through, and I examined it. It said, "Do you want to eat lunch with me next Saturday?" For a minute, I downplayed it. But then my curiosity got the best of me. I sought to see if he was coming in the room, and when it seemed safe, I checked his phone. Sure enough, he'd been texting this number for a long time. I couldn't help myself. I called the number and a woman answered. I asked who it was, and she hung up. I went into a panic. I instantly woke my spouse up and told him what took place. At first, he denied anything, but after a while I wore him down and he fessed up that he had been having an affair with a colleague for the past 6 months. Sadly, as a certified marriage therapist and certified sex therapist, I hear this kind of story usually. The sort of damage it does to marital relationships, to both people in the marriage, is considerable. While hard numbers are tough to come by, thinking about the secretive nature of affairs, some research says that one partner has an affair in 60% of couples. It's not hard to imagine that many divorces have happened because one or both partners strayed from the relationship. But let's take a moment and consider Susie's partner, Kevin. When I spoke with him, he seemed a bit surprised by his own behavior. We've been married for 25 years, but I've had 3 affairs in the last 5 years. I'm not a bad guy. I never ever cheated on any girlfriend before I got married. I'm not dishonest in my profession. Just ask anybody I work with. And I go to church. But I keep doing what a huge part of me doesn't want to do. What do you envision this is about? She changed. She just got so involved with our kids that I felt forgotten, emotionally and sexually. Not to mention that we spent no time together. I'm horrible at communication. I've always had trouble talking with her about my life and what's really going on with me. He then told me what so many guys in his position have told me before in so many words. The women I see now, they get me. I can speak to them. I can truly share with them, and I will not be judged or scolded or told what to do. I can just be me, and I can't help it if just being me makes them attracted to me. From my research over the past 15 years, there are 3 primary active ingredients that frequently trigger people to have affairs. When affairs begin, a person generally doesn't fall in love with the other person, at least not at first. They're actually falling in love with the fantasy, in their very own mind, about the other person. To put it simply, they're falling for the image of the other individual they have created in their own mind. The affair partner is simply a construct, a fabricated image, a person they imagine who will meet their every need. Affairs, at their core, have to do with yearning and a deep need for external validation. Who does not like somebody telling them they look or smell good, or confirming that another person is attracted to them? Who doesn't like to feel what a person values them? Again, many individuals that have an affair aren't falling in love with the other person. They are falling in love with this new, fantastic picture of themselves, an image that is getting praise and external recognition. Many individuals, in their preliminary encounters with an affair partner, become intoxicated by the inner feeling they get with each new encounter. When that new romance begins giving them positive external feedback, a person can get hooked, not on the individual, but on the feeling, or on the chemicals their brain releases when they are with that individual. 3 main chemicals are released during the initial stage of an affair: dopamine, which is also activated by cocaine and nicotine; norepinephrine, otherwise called adrenaline; and serotonin, one of love's most crucial chemicals. Affairs usually have very little bit to do with the other person. Rather, they reveal a deep inner yearning for notice and value. They have a way of tricking people into thinking that this new person is the one or their soulmate, when what they are truly in love with is what's going on within themselves. With this in mind, before taking a step towards having an affair, take a big step back and assess your own inner yearning or need. Consider meeting that need or inner yearning in healthy ways, instead of unhealthy ones. If you are having an affair or trying to fix your marriage post-affair, consider seeking professional help from a marital relationship therapist. This has been Affair: Surviving a Marriage After a Spouse Has Been Cheating. Written by Elsa Harbour.